Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 14th episode in which Naruto's childhood happens differently. After an incident, Naruto grows up as a guest of the Hyuga clan, but he is more interested in his clan's legacy and aspires to be Hokage. However, a certain fox always gets in his way. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. I told you, Kazu-kun, Orochimaru said in a smirk. As Sasuke-kun wears him out, we can catch the boy without much effort. The game has not yet unfolded, and our youthful Jinchuriki is poised to make an excellent card. Akatsuki must wait before they can begin their surgery, Kazu remarked with a frown. Nara, who had defected, was not too pleased about the danger that Akatsuki posed to them. They have already taken one Jinchuriki and attempted to take the Ichibu and Kyubi in one attempt. Kazu exhibited a shrug and remained unimpressed. He was a gamer as long as it caused chaos and pain. Konoha won't be pleased, but that's not the case. It's inconsequential. The other nations will be happy to take advantage of Konoha's vulnerability, once they understand that their Jinchuriki is missing. It is common knowledge that Iwagakure is waiting for a chance to initiate another conflict with Konoha. Naruto uttered the words, bastards. His mouth was drenched in blood after a coughing fit. Unsatisfactory. Not good enough in any way. My body is still bleeding despite the puncture of my lung. It's likely that I was poisoned. The Kyubi had bestowed upon him a chakra that appeared to leak out, which was his biggest source of anxiety. When Naruto was enveloped in the creature's chakra, petty injuries like these were usually not an issue. What poison could have acted as a counterweight to the Kyubi's chakra, which was slowly losing its power and worsening the situation? Naruto-kun, with the same snobbish expression as his character, asked Orochimaru about liking the special poison they have created. Isn't it a nice invention? It should be, because the effort put into it is worth mentioning. A unique poison that responds to the healing power of all those Jinchuriki. It would be effortless for me to catch him, regardless of your condition. The effectiveness of my poison was determined through this field test. After all, it will be very helpful if you keep yourself sedated. The snake bastard is correct in his statement. Even if I were in the best possible condition, winning against a Sannin would be almost impossible. It's possible that I can match them in raw chakra, but my skill and experience are not strong enough. With my chakra exhausted, Kyubi obstructed, and my chest stabbed, what actions can I take? His subordinate was aware of his orders. After a brief moment of concentration, Nara looked up to Sasuke's broken arm and heard him say, "Yes, Orochimaru-sama." He then picked up the unconscious Uchiha and proceeded to run away. The snake sage cracked his fingers as he said, "Now, on that note, what's the story?" Naruto's defiant look prompted him to ask, "Will you go for the easy or easier path? If Kusunagi's sword were to be scratched once more, the Jinchuriki could be taken. The two small rats will be eradicated by it. Regardless, I have achieved victory." Upon seeing the blades approach, Naruto swallowed. But he did not want to give the snake any pleasure. Fortunately, the blade was stopped just inches ahead of him. "Gaara?" he inquired. The only source of the sand barrier was his brother-in-law. He felt that sand had gathered beneath him and was being pulled away from Orochimaru. "I have had the opportunity to meet you 3 times, Gaara stated, with a firm and unwavering tone. "It will also be the last time for me," Naruto said softly, but he couldn't resist adding, "My condition is not good." "Rato, have you caught up as well?" If I had known that Orochimaru himself would be present to receive us, he would have stood in the way of Naruto, confident that his black sword, Kakuto's, would hold up Kusunagi's sword. "I have a blade that is better, but I should be able to buy Gaara enough time to let Naruto get her out of hiding." "2 Jinchuriki for 1, Orochimaru quipped, making light of the situation. If Gaara-kun were to disappear, Tsunagakure would likely point fingers at Konoha for his past actions. It is a highly advantageous advancement. It's a shame that Anko-chan is not present to enhance the scene. Orochimaru, Gaara firmly responded with his words. Despite the possibility that the man was responsible for his father's death, Gaara couldn't be bothered by the incident because she had little affection for her father. Rato's request for Anko to remain with the others brought him happiness. Despite the challenges, the unyielding Tokubetsu Jonin seemed to have foreseen the likelihood of the Sennin's arrival. Given her past, Anko would not be a good fit as someone to be around at this time. Before the others arrived, he had requested her to accompany the injured and fatigued genin back to Konoha. Take note of the fact that there may be some danger involved. Naruto stated that his sword is infused with a poison intended to eliminate Jinchuriki. Gaara smiled slightly, exclaiming, "Don't worry." Today's battles were noticeably better than the norm, for some reason. He wasn't fighting for nothing, not even for his own well-being, but rather for the welfare of others. It made him feel braver and stronger than ever. This is what Naruto embodied. He's probably stronger than both of you, right? With his head tilted in the air, Naruto was unable to find any usefulness among his fellow Jinchuriki. Bloody and sweaty were the symptoms that the Uzumaki was experiencing. He was agitated and only survived thanks to the force of his will. I'm aware, but we didn't just run around in here without any thought. The Sennin was enveloped by a palette of green, red, and white hues. Having concealed himself, Orochimaru had only been able to detect him at the 11th hour, which resulted in broken bones in his arm that he used to repel the attacker. A Sannin shouted, "Jiraiya!" to the other. The Godame Hokage whispered, "Rato and Gaara follow the commandments. Return Naruto to Konoha, the previous location he visited. It appears that he will require Tsunade's assistance immediately. Is it okay to approach my old friend without hesitation, even if you're not sure why?" Rato said, "Godame-sama," and he nodded in agreement. Orochimaru's eyes were narrowed down, revealing his anger by saying, "Jiraiya, you just gave me 2 Jinchuriki." Jiraiya appeared extremely relaxed and smiled, "I was aware that a chance like this could lead you to be exposed. This is the guy I told you about, Pa-ma." Fukasaku's goatee was scratched by Shima, the purple-headed toad, but he survived. The youngster who caused so much pain. As neat as that is, Orochimaru said with a small smile, the 2 little toads started fighting. The man was practically shouting in his ears as they sat on Jiraiya's shoulders. "Jiraiya, you never looked better. This type of jutsu has negative aspects, but it is not without flaws. I think that's why I left my hat behind home, because it wouldn't look good on me if I wore it like this. I'm relieved that Tsunadeheim won't be able to see me like this." Orochimaru agreed that a Hokage's mantle and hat would not be in keeping with his large nose, goatee, and wild spiky hair. With a pretzel on his back, Orochimaru's fashion sense may have been somewhat lacking. "I find it humorous that you, as the person in question, would take on the role of sensei and hold this position." Jiraiya's expression changed from a red line on his face to an angry grimace. "If you had not killed Sarutobi-sensei, it wouldn't have mattered much. It was unavoidable," Orochimaru shrugged and acknowledged, "we were both aware of it." Despite the damage to his arm, he had little concern for minor issues. Jiraiya's senjutsu taught him an unstoppable power that Orochimaru gained through his constantly changing body, which required a fair amount of chakra. Any injuries that could kill someone were only temporary annoyances to him. He had a special fondness for you and your talent. At least you didn't mind the fact that it was a fact. "It is insignificant," Jiraiya declared with a sigh. "Even though you betrayed him, he knew that it was wrong about you. But he could not kill you. He was unable to finish you when he faced you again due to his lack of strength. I'm aware that both of you have a weakness for it. Orochimaru has resigned." Jiraiya affirmed that he will be encountering the Hokage of Konohagakure for the first time, having previously been in his presence as a friend. "I will snitch your attention away from you as I am not knowledgeable." The Uchiha will come back, and I will be provided with evidence to prove who tampered with my informants. Shimura, the shitty-like warrior, and you are collaborating, isn't it? As a friend, Orochimaru quipped, commenting on their friendship during his last battle with Jiraiya. Jiraiya-chan, take it all very seriously, Shima said. I bet your luck has the leadership brought you good fortune. Hold on, Jiraiya-chan, for being so serious about that old lady? That's the clown I know, Orochimaru taunted. The strength emanating from him is palpable to me. What is the duration of Jiraiya's power? His tendency to taunt him and make him lose his temper seems like the most appropriate choice at this point. It was never a complicated task. Despite his strength, he has always been a dumb individual. Orochimaru, duties. That's not a clear meaning for you, but I can tell you that. I made a conscious effort to avoid them for an extended period, thinking that I was not deserving. But the child's opinion was accurate. The world is a chaotic place, where one act of hatred leads to the next. Despite my efforts to break free from the cycle, I am not devoid of obligations. I'm bound to be present in this world. The significance of my actions as a Hokage has grown beyond that point in my life. Do you want to be a Hokage and bring peace? Orochimaru laughs. That's a great joke, man. Have you ever considered the extent of war that karate created and the number of people who died due to their actions? Sensei endeavored to put an end to all the wars in this flawed world. Orochimaru retorted, saying that the waters continue to decay. Nonetheless, he could perceive that this argument was insufficient to coerce Jiraiya into making hasty choices. It appears that becoming Hokage was a turning point that caused him to alter his heart's desires. He is unlike the last time we fought. It's worth mentioning that he didn't modify his appearance like this during those times. Orochimaru was aware of his disadvantage. The battle with Sarutobi Hiruzen had taken a toll on Orochimaru, who was forced to replace his body. He would have used Sasuke's body, but since the Sound Four took so long to deliver the Uchiha, they were all dead now, so he wouldn't have to punish them anymore. Jiraiya had no inclination towards snakes and declared, Kuchi-ose no jutsu. He was a small, cold-blooded snail who preferred not to be near them. Upon witnessing the dissolution of the massive smoke cloud, he recognized the snake that emasculated his most detestable foe. The most powerful summoned serpent of Orochimaru, Manda, was the world's largest. This serpent, which towers over buildings and trees, is the perfect size for a human to be. Fukasaku pondered, did Bunta-chan hate this kid, without even realizing his disinterest? I must admit that I was anticipating a little more, as Bunta had been making hordes of noise. Orochimaru gazed down at his former teammate's diminutive form, laughing. I believe this is a suitable tribute for you, Manda. The task of picking up the Toad Champion and 2 elderly senile bugs should be a satisfying experience. Something was heard by Jiraiya. Shima asked, what the heck are these bugs? Why does a toddler use the term bug to describe us? The snake asked intently. What was the substance that you were smoking when you summoned me in front of both great toad sages, foolish fool? You're a bit of nonsense for me, but I don't think you want to bite your sorry ass. Fukasaku responded with silence. Ma, let me calm down, his wife replied. Shima shouted, Ta kid, you're a fart that deaf people call us. That's the end of it. I have nothing more to say today. My cooking was insulted by you, and now I'm being called a bug. Jiraiya-chan, can you offer me some oil dang it? Jiraiya gave a shrug and continued, I'm not going to lie, I just want to give you an arm rest. The task of directing the 2 aged toads' attention towards the real enemy instead of fighting each other was typically challenging. By comparing them to their food, Orochimaru saved his speech. Senpo shouted, Gomen. Jiraiya shook his hands in delight and released a stream of oil. Following his wife's example, Fukasaku sighed and followed her lead. In the absence of that, he wouldn't be able to convince her not to talk about it. A massive gust of wind was delivered by him. Shima infused the jutsu with fire. In a split second, the entire area was filled with oil that had just started to boil. Despite the sea being hotter than thousands of degrees, Manda didn't even bother to curse his summoner. He was struck and shattered, and it would be several months before the actual damage to his scales would heal. Manda had a clear understanding of the person he would be eating if Orochimaru were to summon him again. The summoning contract should not be granted to individuals like this who are stupid. Jiraiya briefly considered the conclusion of the situation, but unfortunately, the Sennin unexpectedly emerged from the oil. His mouth expanded to the point of being inhuman, and a new Orochimaru emerged, shedding his burnt skin. Jiraiya's appearance was positive, but he realized that his opponent was not happy. The deep, angry scowl was as enjoyable for Jiraiya as the realization of how much chakra Orochimaru lost due to the stunt. I think that's the difference. The version you taught me, however, gives me massive strength and speed, but is only temporary. According to Jiraiya, snakes must undergo a form of senjutsu that involves permanent body modification. They're all variations of the same character, Jiraiya-chan, Fukasaku declared with a shiver. Despite this, there is always a dispute about which version is best. Shakers, it's time to acknowledge that we are not in the wrong place, Shima declared. In the absence of his presence, Jiraiya-chan would have had a clear advantage against that kid, but at this point. After enduring the damage, the child lost an enormous amount of chakras when they were able to wake up. It is the end that matters most to him, Jiraiya declared. I longed for him to be free from his confused path, but now that I am Hokage, I cannot bear to see that he will do the same. He is a menace to my people and must be stopped. Sarutobi Hiruzen's situation was a contributing factor to what would have been better, but he didn't want to make it too personal. With his responsibilities, he couldn't afford to do that anymore. In an attempt to sound confident, Orochimaru chuckled, but his ears didn't match his tone. Jiraiya's strength was unexpected, as stated by him. Manda's observation is difficult to spot, but the toads hanging on his shoulders are incredibly robust. The power of this kind is significantly greater than. Jiraiya could be a suitable opponent. It seems like I've been turned around, Orochimaru admitted. It's a complete disgrace. I was on the verge of taking down the Kyuubi. Jiraiya asked, why did you target Naruto instead of the Uchiha? I wanted to get Sasuke-kun, but they were all Kyuubi. I see it all over the place, Akatsuki. I'm sure you were informed about them. I had the same expectation from Konoha's spymaster. Have you figured out what their intentions are? Irrespective of what I said, it was a big mistake, Orochimaru grinned. I had no intention of joining them, but I aimed to acquire the bijou to prevent my former associates in Akatsuki from succeeding. The newly appointed Hokage and his two-toed summons caused the Sennin to shudder, but with a soft-spoken laugh. I'm taking this opportunity to hearten to the fact that I don't want them to succeed. The world would become a tedious place to be in if they ever did. You didn't anticipate being the type who would flee, Jiraiya questioned whether his adversary was telling the truth. Even though Akatsuki was a mystery to his own spy group, Orochimaru probably had knowledge of it. He has the ability to communicate with me freely, and I am uncertain about its accuracy. Although it may be a minor detail, if some of his information is accurate, it could provide valuable insights. If I were to attack now, I wouldn't be able to discern what he is willing to say. Despite my knowledge of the individual, I am confident that torture or interrogation would not have any significant impact on him. Orochimaru's statement that everybody has their limits was surprisingly succinct. Despite my reluctance, I am convinced that any confrontation with the Akatsuki leader would result in certain fatalities. It's important for you to be aware of this, even more than my own. You were the one who found and trained that child, didn't you? Yes, the Rinnegan is an incredible form of dojutsu. Jiraiya gasped and asked, Rinnegan? A source who was not named disclosed that Akatsuki's leader had an enigmatic dojutsu, but it was almost impossible to uncover more details about the famous personality. The notion that the Rinnegan was the reason for such an event was well known, even to those who were not familiar with it. It was unexpected that his source had no knowledge of the type of dojutsu it involved. Jiraiya was aware of it, having already seen it. Orochimaru sarcastically remarked, "What's up with you? Are you aware that those children passed away, Jiraiya-chan?" Shima inquired. I heard they all was how Orochimaru's response, as he fell to the ground knowing that both Toad and man were preoccupied. A water fragment pierced his waist. "I didn't think I saw it coming, did you?" Fukasaku inquired. After losing his legs, Orochimaru developed a long tail and ran towards Jiraiya at an unimaginable pace. Orochimaru gambled his entire attack by spitting out his sword of Kusanagi. The male Toad had just launched his attack, and he wouldn't be able to cast another jutsu before Orochimaru could strike him. Despite her age and lack of experience with strong opponents, the female participant was surprised. Orochimaru was aware that he would have the opportunity to make it happen. Kusanagi's sword unleashed a chance to. Orochimaru executed a straightforward attack on Jiraiya that was beyond his expectations, despite his quick thinking. Jiraiya's use of hand guards allowed him to remove the poisonous blade by hitting the side of it, which caused the blade to lose its grip. Despite his momentum, Orochimaru was unable to hold back his advances. Jiraiya struck the blade with a hastily produced Rasengan. Despite being formed quickly, the Rasengan was much stronger than usual due to Jiraiya's overwhelming power. With a grimace in his eyes, Orochimaru returned to the ground. He was able to stop the bleeding without much effort, but his arm was missing from the elbow down. The Senin's concern was not related to the possibility of losing their arm. Jiraiya stated that the katana was truly remarkable after retrieving it from the ground. Orochimaru's anger escalated as he was repeatedly warned by the sword that it wouldn't follow. Worse still, Orochimaru poisoned the all-piercing katana with what he claimed was the very poison that had killed Naruto. If he were to use that poison, it would probably not work on the same subject. The emergence of an antidote for Tsunade would make it more challenging to capture the brat, but Orochimaru wondered why he should still attempt to do so. "I cannot overestimate the power of Jiraiya," said one. "His reliance on senjutsu to protect himself is stronger than his ability to do so in this state." Pain was determined to have his sword with him, even though he didn't want anyone to kill him. However, things were no longer as simple. "I am astonished that Kirigakure created those 7 swords," Jiraiya quipped. "This is the embodiment of their creation. The sword of Kusanagi is believed to be older than the 7 rules, and it seems likely that these blades also follow this one." Despite his dislike for scowling, Orochimaru had to take some steps back and cut his losses. "It just follows the victor," Orochimaru spat out. "Jiraiya, make sure to employ it. When the virtuous inhabitants of Akatsuki start to move, you require it. Their preparations will be finished in 3 years' time. When the Rinnegan's master departs from AIM, all of humanity will perish." Shima remarked, "No, don't," as he realized what Orochimaru was doing. "Zesenbaku, fighting tongue bind," she murmured after forming a ram hand seal. Despite being coated with a toxic chemical, the tongue failed to hit its intended target. The only thing it ensnared was an unempty kernel. "Ta snake child, shunned me, Jiraiya-chan," Fukasaku murmured. "Slippery as ever," Jiraiya stated, causing him to feel slightly uncertain. He was aware that he had to stop his ex-teammate, and after Hiruzen's passing, this was one of the reasons a resolution was easily found. Jiraiya experienced a frustrating moment of relief when he saw Orochimaru slip away. The Hokage of Konohagakure was irritated by his conscience and felt betrayed. "Regardless of whether I had a former friend or not, I should have been capable of ending his life. He will not be able to show himself again now that he knows the power of my Sennin mode, which is imperfect. He will be moving quickly towards his hiding place by now. Although I could try to follow him, it would be suicide if I entered his territory without making sure I was prepared. Even when I'm like this. Furthermore, I am unable to maintain this level of severity indefinitely. Jiraiya-chan, what's up next? Shima scoffed at the question. Jiraiya sighed, saying, I will return. Returning to the shores of Konoha. The Uchiha is beyond our capabilities at present, and pursuing Orochimaru will be a greater danger than reward. Furthermore, he gave me plenty to reflect on. Was Fukasaku's statement about Rinnegan truthful? I don't think there was any justification for him to be dishonest about it. It was not until a few years ago that I encountered those children, but Tsunade and Orochimaru were both present when I met them. Jiraiya spoke about the tragic events that led to the deaths of Yahiko, Konan, and Nagato at Sanshuo no Hanzo's hands, several years after he left. I had a gut feeling that I would be able to train them for survival, but they caught my attention too soon. If Ta children have died, how can they still be alive? Fukasaku inquired. Is it true that Hanzo took Ta dojutsu for himself? Asked Jiraiya. The tight-lipped approach of Hanzo towards Amigakure makes it almost impossible to obtain accurate information from the surrounding area. According to Orochimaru, the other student who had the Rinnegan was Yahiko. Could Hanzo have taken them into custody? Shima speculated that Akatsuki could be Amigakure's boss. The situation would become much more intricate with that. If that is the case, then it is indeed true. Although Hanzo is a strong leader, I doubt he would be wise to declare war on the 6 nations that possess the 9 Bijuu warriors. It's possible that Yahiko is a good kid who could assist him in his endeavor. Fukasaku speculated that he may have targeted them as a means of strengthening his country's position, given that their fate is unknown. As a human, Hanzo is not getting any younger, and that's just how old he seems. Jiraiya shook his head and said, that doesn't make me correct my beliefs. We fought and he said, what do you think? He stated that a firm belief system would endure the death of its possessor and exist on its own. The only way to understand his faith was through a struggle, as per his statement. He would provide complete training to his successors while also avoiding the possibility of the world turning against Amigakure. If you were to target the Jinchuriki, you would see him accomplishing exactly what you're seeing. Rather than safeguarding his legacy, he would only jeopardize it. Furthermore, given the current economic situation, his country is almost completely protected from any potential invaders. The area borders Iwagakure, Sunakure, and Konoha, so if any of them were to attack AIM, Fukasaku assured that the other 2 sides would intervene and prevent a war that threatened their buffer zone. The status quo is no longer in effect. In fact, it is. I doubt that Hanzo would recklessly instigate a new world war. I require additional time to decipher the current events. I am grateful to both of you for your assistance, Senna. Jiraiya-chan expressed regret that we were unable to provide better assistance to you. Amidst the chaos, Jiraiya was left alone as the 2 toads disappeared from his shoulders with small pockets of smoke. Jiraiya had boiled and burned the parts of the region that Sasuke and Naruto had not yet destroyed. The restoration of this area would be inevitable after a few years. With the sword of Kusanagi still in his hand, Jiraiya turned and jumped away after discovering the last remnants of her Senjutsu chakra. The Rinnegan or Orochimaru were not as important to him as his godson, who was injured. I must quickly head back to Naruto. With the poison in my possession, Tsunadeheim should be able to cure him. Gaki, just hang in there. The Godame Hokage whispered, Rado, Gaara, follow the commandments. Return Naruto to Konoha, the previous location he visited. It appears that he will require Tsunade's assistance immediately. Is it okay to approach my old friend without hesitation, even if you're not sure why? Rado said, Godame-sama, and he nodded in agreement. Rado and Gaara jumped from tree to tree, while the Ichibu Jinchuriki carrying Naruto was found on a bed of sand. Rado-san, how much do you know about antidotes? The usually hesitant voice was cautious. The man who was scarred later responded, I'm not a medic, but I can handle my own poisons. Despite his calm and collected demeanor, he chose to hurry back to Konoha instead of trying to read Naruto. Rado was aware of the poison that caused the boy's death, but he knew his ignorance would be inadequate by default. The poison that Orochimaru used remains unknown, as I am unable to determine its source or how it could be neutralized. Naruto will have to wait until we get to Tsunade-sama. I may be subjected to physical violence from Bachan because of my previous injury, Naruto said softly. Blood continued to trickle, and the flesh surrounding his chest wound had a scent that left the young Jinchuriki feeling nauseous. Due to the poison and the loss of blood, Naruto was left with nothing but adolescence as he lay motionless on the floating sandstone. How are the others doing? Anko defeated those grotesque beastmen and brought them back to Konoha. Naruto chuckled and then admitted that she might have wanted to move forward, had Orochimaru come too close. However, the pain in those movements left him with an excruciating burden on his chest. I requested her to stay there, Rado muttered. Although it appeared improbable to me, Anko's lack of predictability in Orochimaru was not appropriate for this mission. Naruto's response was, why don't you call her Anko-chan? Despite the seemingly rationale surrounding it. Rado, who was supposed to land on a branch that he almost missed, tried to protest but Naruto knew it was too weak. I observed you gazing at me, and you weren't as snobbish as you assumed. Gaara, Naruto scowled. With a curious look on his face, Gaara glanced at his fellow Jinchuriki and shrugged it off. Gaara, you must have read something about it. The voice changes in Naruto's voice, causing Rado and Gaara to frown. Evidently, he went into a delirious state. He sounded like the type of person who had several sake bottles in their possession. Rado instructed Naruto to stop talking and take a break, as it was his turn. I bet you're also considering taking a prescription. While Naruto was attempting to laugh at Anko-chan, he coughed up in frustration. Assuming I wouldn't be able to read, I was given the smut of his by Hokage always. Did he have a desire to provoke AKO? I'm not sure. Nevertheless, I am aware of the way she looks. Naruto is a brand that I am considering. Gaara paused her jump and gazed at the blonde hair. Naruto's coughing was unbearably loud after Gaara interrupted his speech with the phrase, "You're dash dot." As he moved excessively, blood was spilt out and his chest swelled even more. The flak jacket had been blackened and was now completely covered in Naruto's blood. Naruto's last delirious smile was followed by a reclined and passed-out posture. Rado felt that his body temperature was rising, even if he only touched Naruto's head for a second time. We must act quickly to achieve our goal. It's not good. Rado was heard saying, "Yo, have you made it back?" by Anko as the door to the Uzumaki house opened. In the meantime, we can take a break from our busy schedule. I have to return here, he grumbled, as the cat had told him. What's the matter with you? The gaki caught an Oto Kunoichi, Anko replied softly. Eye to eye, she asked her jaw inked, what the hell is this blood? You're not in harm's way, are you? Shikamaru muttered, wondering if Anko was being too sensitive. We confined her to Chie's room and activated the locks that Naruto had placed on them. We are unsure of her proficiency in Fuinjutsu or barriers and therefore desire to wait until you both are here. It's possible for me and Hinata to depart now. I suggested that she seek medical attention at the hospital. Anko shook his head and suggested that she let her arms be checked. Despite everything, she's as unyielding as a bulldozer. Has Naruto-kun returned? The Hyuga looked at the door cautiously. You and Gaara-san were supposed to go after Naruto-kun, he said. Rado replied with a grunt, we got what we wanted. This would be a sensitive issue for both genders. The Uchiha managed to avoid any confrontation with the Taliban. Shikamaru looked at him and asked, "What? How did he do that?" His best friend's ill-fated death left him dismayed, to say the least. Upon Orochimaru's arrival, Rado cut him off by saying, "How could you not believe how strong Nagoya was given Sasuke?" Anko uttered a loud scream, "That's the name of that boy." "Anko, I am aware, it is true. Naruto's life was saved by us in time, but he ultimately died." He raised his hands in defense, causing the others to remain silent. The hospital is where Naruto is receiving medical attention. He was stabbed in the chest by Orochimaru. Hinata was directed to approach the door with the words, "En Naruto-kun," but Anko knew that even if Naruto was killed by a simple stabbing wouldn't stop. That never put a hold on him for too long. The presence of blood on Rado's clothing implied that something was awry. Something that was typically associated with her old friend. "He's been poisoned, right?" "Apparently not," Ako stated, "Hinata-sama," and the person in question responded with a smile. "I will accompany you on your walk, please." "I cannot, I must dash," Ako argued, "Hinata-sama, it would be hard to imagine that you cared for Naruto so much as to make such an impression on the elders." "I'm not bothered by the elders or father's wishes," Ako emphasized, "Hinata. Shikamaru-san and the others disregarded direct orders from the Hokage and sensei. It would be an ideal opportunity for those who do not want you to remain heirs to urge Hayashi-sama to name Hanabi-samachi as his successor and to brand you with the caged bird seal." With broad eyes, Hinata gazed at the member of the branch. "Clan politics is why I have a strong distaste for them," Anko whispered. Ako is aware of his position. It is possible that excessive indulgence will result in more harm than good at the moment. It's important to exercise caution. Hinata-san should know that Tsunade-sama is currently undergoing surgery, and I apologize for any inconvenience caused. Shizun expressed regret by stating that he could not allow Naruto-kun to be seen. Nevertheless, Shizun remarked, disregarding Hinata's protests, "And take a look at those bloody rags." "You didn't come to the hospital earlier," Shizun replied with a smile. Hinata was pushed into another room by her, who had grabbed her by the shoulders. "The first step is to mend your arms, and I will do that as well." Although Ako appeared remorseful, she was incapable of doing anything to help the Hyuga heiress. Despite Tsunade's efforts to revive Naruto, no one else could stop her from doing so. Shizun admitted to not fully comprehending Tsunade's responsibilities. Orochimaru's creation of the poison was more intricate than what Shizun had ever encountered. Tsunade was unable to comprehend the harm he had inflicted on Naruto, leaving him bewildered. If it weren't for Jiraiya's return with Kusanagi sword, Tsunade would have had to face an impossibility in achieving the task. Despite his lack of understanding about the Hokage's role in the present disaster, Ako still had questions for him regarding the identity of the Sword of Kusanagi. "Ako-san," inquired the Hyuga, who then found a dirty Uzumaki. Ako greeted Karen with a smile. "I'm relieved that you haven't been hurt." "I suppose," Karen's smile widened slightly. "Nisan is still in pain, though." Despite Kibakuin's slow recovery, Shizun-san was able to revive him. At present, he is simply fatigued. Due to the mental damage inflicted on her, Ino-san is still undergoing treatment by her father. Lee-san is also dealing with serious injuries, but he appears to be recuperating quickly enough. The surgery performed on Niji-san was also successful. "I'm sorry to say that Shichoji-san didn't make it." Ako embraced Uzumaki, the vulnerable girl, and sobbed when she began to shake like a leaf. "I'm aware that it will be a struggle for you. Karen-chan, why are you still at home? You need to get some rest." Karen admitted that her eyes were leaking, which betrayed her ability to smell. "I am capable of serving a purpose in this situation, but my sole focus is on supporting Shizun-san," she declared. I'm not willing to be weak anymore. Losing everything is not my intention, as I don't want to lose everything. Ako taunted the redhead. Naruto is strong, Karen, if Nissan would. Orochimaru, a legendary figure, was the only one to be hospitalized due to the poisonous nature of his substance. If not for that, Naruto will be impossible to stop. I'm aware, but I have to admit that. Karen bowed as she spoke. I'll have to be mindful of that later on. At present, I can feel Nissan's chakra, even though I am aware that he is hurting. The Uzumaki's escape from the ward made Hyuga smile, but she had to hurry to deliver the 4 fluid to Niji-san before 6. When I saw that child, it was so different, Ako thought. She sighed and made the decision to carry out her obligation. Reporting her findings to Hitomi was necessary, and she believed that the matriarch of her clan would not approve. Ultimately, Ako's loyalty in Hyuga affairs was to Hitomi, not the other members of the main house. As Hokage-sama, are you still here? Gaara, I don't trust Umbu. Sir Naruto is hurt, but I will remain close by if I am injured. You're under a lot of paranoia, right? Jiraiya quipped. But have confidence in me. With Tsunadeheim in close proximity, nobody will be hesitant to try anything. Sandame-sama made a similar statement about the previous Umbu guard we had encountered. As Jiraiya sighed, thanks for your answer. He was too fatigued to engage in conversation with this boy. I'd rather you stay alive than kill everyone who would come near. Your sensei sent me a letter today, and it's expected to arrive within the next couple of days. It is important for you and your sibling to get ready before departing. At the very least, I don't plan to keep you here any further this long. If not, Baki will be the one to make a very serious mistake and violate our previous agreements. Despite nodding, Gaara did not seem to indicate any relief or disappointment. Despite his extensive knowledge and experience of humans and their behavior, Jiraiya found the boy difficult to comprehend. Gaara was the only person who took the initiative in conversations, and he did so just near his sister and Naruto. What is the expected outcome for me? Until recently, the Ichibi would terrorize him at every hour of the day. Following his painful experiences, it is truly a source of happiness for us all that he is acting so well. With Naruto going through a similar period, it's safe to say that the two boys have only grown closer in the past few weeks. Naruto referred to him as a brother in burden, and Jiraiya sighed. He was aware that Gaara could comprehend Naruto in ways that Jiraiya couldn't, despite his wish to assist his godson. However, he was currently preoccupied with other matters. He was confident that the council's senior members were already requesting his secretary Irika to meet with their Hokage. Jiraiya's departure from his office was partly due to this reason. He declined and wished to converse with another individual. A person who occupied a hospital room in the same hallway as Naruto. Jiraiya's knock caused the man to quickly put away a certain orange book and say, "Get in here." "Kakashi, don't worry, Tsunadeheim is the one to blame for this," he said. "Is it true that she still has a disdain for my literary genius?" Jiraiya inquired. "What is your experience with Naruto?" Orochimaru unmistakably ingested a lethal drug. "I am confident that he will recover. The brat is too resolute to be defeated by a mild poisoning." "It's in his blood," Kakashi exclaimed, revealing with a rare eye smile. However, he did appear to be exhausted. Not only from physical injuries, but also from mental mishaps. "Sasuke, did the Uchiha boy go to?" Orochimaru sighed by his own volition. "I was told by Gaara that the cursed seal had an impact on Sasuke, but it only served to reinforce his own desires. The remaining Uchiha members seem to be traitors in disguise." Kakashi asked, "Will you put him in the bingo book?" "Godame-sama, I am responsible for this. Had I been a more proficient sensei to him, this would not have happened. Most of us would be unable to comprehend the burdens that the boy faced during his childhood. It's best to feel fortunate for not comprehending the situation." By examining the files, you are aware of Itachi's actions. Given his blood, it was easy to see why he would choose revenge over other options. I would have witnessed the extent of his fall before anyone. Nevertheless, we were not informed that Orochimaru had the bravery to take Sasuke like that. That's the reason I've come to you, Kakashi. Is there a goal to achieve? Someone has tampered with my sources. Given the manner in which Sasuke was taken away, it seems likely that he was killed or stolen by someone. Jiraiya glowered and incredulous that someone had given them all the information they needed to know about our defenses. In case you are capable of performing your job, I will provide you with a specific roster of individuals. You will have to find out which of these sources has been hacked, and who was the one that did it. Until I have evidence, I cannot proceed with an action. The narrowness of Kakashi's eye was evident. Is there an insider plot to eliminate the last devoted Uchiha? Did he collaborate with Orochimaru? Jiraiya inquired, stating that this is a perilous conclusion. He has ears encircling him all around. Kakashi nodded and confirmed that they are aware of the division that was closed years ago. The brute practices were something the former Umbu captain would not forget. I am not saying, but don't be fooled. He is the reason for that, because he has the backing to do it. He would not be well received by many clans if he were accused of these matters. Furthermore, in the event that the allegations are untrue, well, it is a very deep truth that he and I can barely touch each other. My mistake would result in me being expelled from the Sendi's office before I could even eulogize with the term hot springs. Is there any information that could help? Although you may be eager to leave, you must first get back to being healthy, Jiraiya declared softly. I'd like you to attend the funeral of the Aburame boy without reservation. The Akimichi boy's service is expected to occur on the same day. Jiraiya had a strong dislike for it. He had only just taken the office and had to bury two innocents who were barely older than children. Sarutobi-sensei has always expressed that it is more demanding to send people on missions than to go on those missions, he said. I think I've come to a better understanding of him now. Kakashi's room was left empty. As Jiraiya slowly made his way back, with the intention of meeting Tsunade. Although she may not be able to accept it, I could still make her so drunk that she would want to take over the hat. It's important to acknowledge that I don't possess the necessary qualities for this role. Despite his thoughts, Jiraiya had already made arrangements to find a successor for his position as the spymaster of Konoha. What is the reason behind Kakashi's decision to evaluate all his secret agents? Nevertheless, it would be necessary for him to prove his innocence before proceeding. Jiraiya was not impressed with his performance as a sensei. The man's laziness would likely cause him to feel uneasy as he sought after Sasuke and Orochimaru. Hatake Kakashi had never been concerned about his skill, after all. Shizune remained pushy, but Hinata had to acknowledge that the young woman had successfully treated her injuries at his arms. Shizune desired to ensure the proper healing of the damaged nerves and muscle tissue, which meant she had to be first in the hospital. Hinata was aware that her combat style depended on her arms, and she had no choice but to remain where she was. Hinata became restless as the day went on and her patience dwindled. Consequently, she chose to leave without being seen. Hi, I'm Hinata Chance. Are you already awake? Hinata asked, Keikawa-san, with a smile on her face. Hitomi concluded her sentence for her daughter, saying, I wanted to sneak out, completing the sentence. Shizune-san would not be pleased if her patient were to run away alone, in my opinion. With a weary expression, Hinata gave up and went to sleep, she said. I didn't have a running intention in mind. The thought of leaving the hospital didn't appeal to me. That's what I saw, Hitomi smiled softly. According to Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun is still sleeping. Before entering the building, the woman with blue hair explained that she had planned to inquire about her son's condition. Despite everything, she knew that Hinata would ask about him. The words, "thank you," elicited from Hinata were sincere, but Hitomi was aware that her daughter's response was not satisfactory. She declined and wished to witness his true nature. Hitomi sighed, saying, "You must be careful, Hinata-chan. I'm not saying that you're only in love with Naruto-kun, but I think there are many who would also say that it isn't good enough. The question of why Naruto-kun is a Jinchuriki and not Hisashi's death remains unanswered. Despite the knowledge that Naruto-kun was unrelated to it, many people still have reservations about its legitimacy. I'm afraid that your father falls under that category too. The situation with Naruto-kun would become more delicate as you continue to be the heiress, as explained by Hitomi. Without a doubt, today is no different. Ignoring orders, I knew," Hinata sighed. Hitomi bluntly stated, "Many people cited your disobedience as the reason to banish you to the branch family," making Hinata appear pale. "I was able to persuade your father, but only just. He was on the verge of officially naming Hanabi-chan as the new heiress. I was unaware of." "What is the reason behind your actions, Hinata? Despite Godame-sama's instruction for your teams to remain in the village, why did you decide to leave?" "Shino-kun was killed, and Hinata, I am a kunoichi from Konohagakure. The job involves the risk of dying," Hitomi interrupted, emphasizing that it is crucial for Shinobi to acknowledge this fact. Retaliation and hatred cannot be tolerated when attempting to lead the Hyuga clan towards a better tomorrow. "I didn't," Hinata protested, indicating that she was not used to her mother's strictness. She was aware of the fact that Hitomi had a valid argument and that there were many expectations surrounding her role as heiress, but she had never made any effort to argue with her. Hitomi had never exerted such pressure on her before. Hinata had never expected to be the heiress for such a long time. The clan's failure made her a source of mockery, and she wasn't even considered an heiress. Hinata had come to realize in the past few months that her mother had already prepared her for a much larger challenge than she had anticipated. By preparing her, Hitomi not only intended to be an heiress but also the one who would guide the clan back to its starting point. "I'm aware that you haven't fully grasped the seriousness of your position, and how your every move and action reflects this reality is clear." Hitomi closely observed Hinata's expression, similar to the way Suzaku had instructed her. "One of my friends was taken hostage by someone. Sasuke-san may not have been a pleasant person, but he was also an important figure for Konoha's lineage. Despite the fact that everyone was looking in the wrong direction, we were aware of the location where Sasuke-san was taken. Instead of contacting the Hokage's office, why not send him a note instead of keeping tabs on the group and their actions towards Sasuke-san?" Hinata was unable to clarify the meaning of what she termed an unusual sealing. "We anticipated that he would perish unless we saved him, contrary to our predictions. Out of the 9, only 4 were in our company, and 2 had already been injured. Our minds were filled with optimism, and we all decided to take advantage of the opportunity. We transmitted the news. Before we left, Chie went looking for Naruto-kun and set out. The presence of Anko-san and Rado-sama with him meant we were expecting to hear from one of them, if not another." "Is it your decision to go to war that caused others to disregard the orders given by Hokage-sama?" pressed Hitomi. "Hinata, you are a smart girl. The essence of our village should never be underestimated. We are a militarized population. It is not within Genin's power to independently decide such matters. It's a stroke of luck that Hokage-sama didn't choose to imprison all of you." Hinata's eyesight was diminished as he appeared pale. "The Jinchuriki of Konoha was put in danger by your actions, and Tsunade-sama's revelations suggest that Naruto-kun could have perished if his wounds had not been healed. The absence of a Jinchuriki may have caused the outbreak of war. I wouldn't have wanted to, but my apprehension was evident. If Gaara-san, Hinata, or Temari-san had died, what would have happened?" Hitomi asserted that any lasting peace between Suna and Konoha would not exist. Her face softened when she saw her daughter in a state of panic, but she knew that Hinata had to learn this lesson now. You may not have been the only one to make a decision, but as an heiress, that should not be an excuse. It's up to you to decide for yourself. The entire clan will be affected by your decisions when you assume the role of your father. The outcome of the Akimichi clan's heir could have had an impact on you or any other member of your group. Hinata was so upset about her mother's lecture that she almost yelled, I apologize. Don't, Hitomi muttered. Perhaps take this as a lesson to remember, and carry it forward. While my words were harsh, they should never underestimate their competitors. Each shinobi will make similar mistakes at some point in their careers. I am glad you did not take this decision out of revenge-seeking intent. The act of seeking vengeance would not be suitable for our clan to be reinstated and the main and branch families to come together. Hinata was taken aback as she looked at her mother. Nevertheless, is the statement made by Hitomi about her daughter's unusual blue hair. Hinata, you are young, she said. Remember, there are many people who have a deep interest in you, so be mindful of that. Some have a duty to fulfill them, while others are simply seeking to remove you from your position. You must now take a break and allow Shizen-san to examine your arms. After that, I will make sure that the training regimen is more challenging. The door creaked and opened wider after someone hushed their throat for making such noise. Karen froze in place and peeked into the room, saying, Hinata, are you still awake? Hyuga-sama, if that helps, she whispered softly. Hitomi chuckled bluntly and confidently, Uzumaki-san, at the young redhead's surprise and embarrassment. I had just finished chastising my daughter, so please enter. This statement is incorrect. I'm not concerned, if that helps, Karen replied with a shrug. I'm sorry, I didn't anticipate you were here. My lack of chakra power means that I have to concentrate on Ni-san with my inner eye. Karen-san? Hinata asked why her new colleague was present. She had no idea that Karen was trailing Shizun, acting as an assistant. It would be more accurate to suggest that Karen had no alternative but to seek her daughter's help, which was not the case with Shizun. Furthermore, Shizun and Karen had a successful time cooperating with Tsunade's spirit, but they were both well advised to tolerate it. Karen lied, I came to see how you were doing. Regrettably, she was in the presence of a woman who was the most proficient lie detector in any village or nation. Did you come with my daughter to watch Naruto-kun? As Hitomi inquired. Karen's response was characterized by an owlish stare, but she eventually got over it after a few seconds. I'm curious if you can match Ni-san's skill level, Karen admitted with a sigh. I was present to bring Hinata to Ni-san, and I knew it would be. Upon returning home, Shizun-san went to rest while Tsunade-sama rested for a brief period. There is no one present at Ni-san's doorstep other than the regular nurses. Despite Gaara's overprotective mother-hen demeanor, the others are willing to let me down. Karen mimicked her brother's request to stay for a bit and laughed while scratching the back of her head. Hitomi was amused by the girl's shrewdness and expressed his belief that Naruto-kun could be seen without anyone in close proximity. Is it safe to assume that Naruto-kun is on the mend? Karen remarked with emotion. Tsunade-sama discovered an antidote, and her eyes met with a blank stare. Despite Ni-san's continued sleep, she is still awake. Hinata-chan inquired, are you prepared? Hitomi jolted back and forth to both teens. You're aware that I have departed from your room, but you were still present and eager to explore Naruto-kun. It's not possible for you to follow Tsunade-sama and remain in your room like they always do. Hinata gave a lackade nod. Karai-chan, take charge of the cause. If Hinata-chan is in close proximity, they will not face any further allegations of disobedience. He experienced poison, blood loss, numbness, chakra malfunction, and darkness. He felt like he was floating on water, as if thrown into a vast vacuum. Was he experiencing pain? He was not aware of the situation. Although he didn't believe it outright, a conclusion was impossible for him. He was terrified by it. He didn't experience any sensations, sight or sound. Despite his resolution, was it possible for him to die? Even though he had promised to come back, did he still have time to live, or maybe, and I don't know where exactly? He was on his way, but tried to hold on to the ground. Hold on a moment, there wasn't anything. Whether he moved or not was inconsequential. The absence of anything made no difference where he was, regardless of the distance between them. Despite the possibility of something happening, he was uncertain about whether his body followed his commands. His head was tilted and he attempted to observe, but there was no response. There was nothing, there were no individuals left, right, front, or back. This solitary, dark space, was this death? Could it have been more severe than his own wounds, or poisoned by the same poison? If not for him, but for one Uzumaki left to carry his burden with him forever? He was unable to die. He averted his gaze. He was compelled to leave this empty space. Everything turned around in a matter of seconds, as promised by him. It was a complete immersion in light, brightness, warmth, tranquility, and safety. The joyous feeling was too much for him to even attempt to articulate. He was uncertain about his emotions. It was glorious, warming his heart, but the beautiful, bright light was so captivating that he didn't feel concerned about it. He aimed to follow it. He desired it. He wished to enjoy its brightness and tranquility, to be at ease. Peace was present, but the elusive light shone through with a peace that was unfamiliar to him. He was curious about what they had to say. He desired it. All he could think about was the constant turmoil in his life. He had experienced the anger and disdain of others due to their negative emotions. It had encircled him and caused him to drown. Within, the fox had only attempted to dismember him and harbored animosity towards others for their actions. His inner qualities were disliked by people outside, who were afraid of his future. The idiots had no idea that their hatred could have turned him into the person they feared. There are always those pessimistic glares. At times, there is a chance of open aggression. This was the fate of those at the bottom of society. He had never experienced genuine peace. That light wasn't there for him. He aimed to, but it was not within his reach. He hoped to be like others, but his destiny had turned on him. Due to fate, he was no longer entitled to be on equal terms with those around him. Minato's father had done that, but Naruto was aware that he didn't have many other options available to him. That fooled man who had faith in the village, turned Naruto's life into hell and a downfall. Despite his best efforts to live normal life, Naruto was consistently disappointed in the process. He had tried to trust and allowed people to enter, but he was unsuccessful in every attempt. He had a constant urge to run away from the darkness and hostile environment that could be intimidating to the most exceptional individuals. He was alone in the world, unable to conceal their desires, longings, fears, hatred, and greed. The sole individual who had been different was the one he had chosen to stay with. The one who gave him hope, kept him healthy, and transformed his world was the shining beacon of light within the vast darkness that haunted him. In the world he had endured, this light was everything. The silence in this world was overwhelming. He closed his eyes, relishing in the relief of not feeling any ill will. Nevertheless, in that empty space, he realized that there was still something amiss. He was the only thing that remained, with no other evidence or information available. What was his reaction? "I'm introducing myself today." He was taken aback by the question, "Who's this?" Where did the whisper of a voice come from? There was no one present, only the light. The gloom that permeated his presence. Observe yourself closely for any signs of trouble. Your own thoughts and emotions. Have a sense of what you're feeling. Once again, the whispering voice could be heard. My answer is no, but I don't care. Naruto's expression was a grimace when he asked about his emotions. What the hell was going on? Is that accurate? There was nothing to experience, only a strange feeling in his mind. The sensation of being engulfed by everything around him had left him with an overwhelming sense of unease. He had endured a silent suffering for those many years. "I am aware of my emotions," he stated. "What is the meaning of my darkness?" He surveyed his surroundings, but there was no sign of anything. Despite his ongoing movement, the light was inexplicably close to him, making it impossible to determine any distance, size, or speed. There was a difference between his punitiveness and his massive size, as both were subjective. Nevertheless, in this empty space, there was nothing to connect with, only the light. Since his dream about abandoning his knight, how much time had passed since he had chosen to seek out the light? He had retreated from the corrupt Kyubi since that time, but he forgot that this darkness was within him. The fox could be blamed, but the cold fingers of his knight were still holding him back. He was blind. He was blinded by the overwhelming sense of negativity emanating from others. The choice was insufficient to dispel the feeling. He had been in bed for years, and it was too challenging to leave. He mumbled, "I am not the light, but I am looking at it." "Your light has never been mine," a murmurated voice retorted, as expected. "The light is a dim reflection of my imminent death, but I'm not sure how to respond. Love is a perpetual force that will not cease." The concept of love is rarely addressed by Uzumaki Naruto. He was constantly confronted with the negative and struggled to grasp the positive. He had always assumed that he would never find someone who would truly love him, but the matter was significant. He realized that he would probably die before reaching adulthood when the thought occurred. He had no desire to hurt the person he loved the most, and it was not for his own selfish motives. The sacrifice of Hiruzen had brought about a change in everything. His mindset remained unchanged, but so did everything else. Did he have the same emotional response as her? Love is the life-giving force of all that exists, and love is like the genuine light within your heart. How can I start loving when I am already dead? It has always loved me. From the moment of birth until your last breath. It will always be there. He was blinded by blues. Clear skies enveloped in a mist, with little to no precipitation. He had been floating. The light was now more secluded, but he could still perceive it. Despite everything, what transpired was simply breathtaking. It was a time for all of us. The short duration of his life was forgotten in the ensuing years. The roots of the earth were ancient, as old as eternity, renewing with renewal without interruption. Despite being fixed in one spot, it was always in motion. Despite the contradiction and paradox, the cycle was broken. The voice sounded more amused than anything else. What lacks a commencement has no end. Nevertheless, it has been hindered. What do you think? What is the bright light? The organism is persistently attempting to attain it, but failing to do so. Isn't it a source of sadness that Naruto feels? To be separated from life beyond the realms of existence? Saddening, right? Despite his weightlessness, the earth was transformed as the voice traveled down from above. The earth rose and descended beneath the luminous sky, while the oceans below were pumping with vibrancy. Mountains were formed and then collapsed to sand. The growth of forests led to a change in their composition, turning into deserts before the landscape became green again. Despite the chaos, it was not an accident. He couldn't distinguish the connections between them, as they all led to each other. You fail to comprehend how everything is connected. You are unable to see that. The voice once again conveyed that he needed to feel the emotion. Discrete knowledge is rooted in the deepest possible sources. It is not easy to express true knowledge. You will not be able to see it in its truest form, as I am incapable of doing so. It is unofficial. It's important to experience it, feel it and learn from it. Expose yourself to it. Instead of providing any answers, Naruto was left feeling more lost in the riddle due to the voice's tone. When you are unfamiliar with yourself, how can you tell if you haven't even started to acknowledge your own shortcomings? Gratitude, human, as you are not isolated from it. Not yet. Until then, you can still find your light. It still holds a special place in your heart. The world went through. Naruto's understanding was hindered by the rising of the sun and the sinking of moons. The second cycle of life followed a pattern: birth and development, decay and demise, only to start over once more. The multitude of distinctions only made everything appear alike. His aspiration for equality appeared ludicrous in the realization of his inherent differences. Naruto paused to consider his response to the question, "What is human? What are you?" Naruto's world was filled with laughter as Kyuubi posed for "Who you are." The laughter was so loud that Naruto decided to join in, somewhat reluctantly. The laughter was as warm as the springtime sun's gentle rays. The most significant of the 9, it is primarily aware of its incompleteness. Despite his knowledge of the universe, Naruto's voice kept on shouting riddles and his laughter quickly turned into frustration as he grimaced. "Patristan, you have time left, but it's not as much as you hoped. Upon opening up your eyesight, you will be able to observe the world around you. You will choose to go in the same direction as the person who placed you on this path, and I hope that you can successfully complete it. He made certain that you would meet me because of this reason. Your predecessor and the first of your cycle were not aware of something. He didn't know me either. Predecessor, what's your first line of inquiry? Why are you so resolute with your words? I am the most suitable person among the remaining members of your line and will play a crucial role. Without a key, you cannot unlock it because you don't know what to do. To make the most of me, one must have a connection to nature and be skilled at using it." Naruto was puzzled by the question, "Wasn't Gekihoko?" "I'm ecstatic. That's why your voice is so familiar to me, like Uzumaki Ryota." The final word I uttered, the voice acknowledged. "It is the one I still employ, even if his spirit has moved to the Pure Land. My first voice is too young for you to hear." "First voice? But how can you do it? The significance of a key is not relevant. When the goal does not exist, a key is of no use whatsoever. I will show you how to find what is my goal. If you uncover it, you will come back. If you fail, your time will be wasted and the world will disintegrate. Uzumaki Naruto, you are your light. To do that, you must learn the elements and become acquainted with the world." Despite this, we never reveal that we said anything. It's important to refrain from sharing with anyone, even those you have faith in, as it can harm your trust. It's possible that you will have the freedom to speak at a later time, but not currently. Failure would be a hindrance to you and the world. The senior citizen will be aware of the situation, which he has anticipated, but I am not willing to reveal it to anyone else. Uzumaki Naruto, are you willing to swear and keep the most significant secret that your clan kept hidden from others? "I will swear," he said with a modest smile. He was suspended in the air, silently conversing with no one, but bowing down without any discernible path. "Come to terms with, and discover my mission. Your mind is entrusted with the island as I know it. Therefore, if you come across it here, you will be able to discover it in reality as well. Find out the roots of your family's heritage. As someone who was among the few to remain true to their beliefs, you must be ready to take on that burden." Naruto inquired, "What are you getting ready for? What is the origin of this situation? You were strong enough for me to intervene, poisoned sufficiently to briefly remove the young fox's power, but time is approaching its end. It's time to make amends. The world would crumble if another cycle of balance persisted. The restoration of harmony, or disintegration, will be a result of your actions. Your role in the larger context will be crucial, child. The cycle cannot start over without your presence. If it ceases, so will everything else. Locate the root, and you shall return to your brightness once more." The voice remained silent as Naruto said, "What are you asking about?" What role do you play? And the voice tugged at him, which he had been aware of for years. Gravitation. Forgive me, he whispered, as a witness witnessed him tumble at incredible speeds down to an island overtaken by forests, mountains, rivers, and ruin. Hyuga Hinata, with her arms bandaged, sat beside the bed and held the right hand of someone who had trouble sleeping. Shida, what are you doing here? Did Shizun tell you to stay in your room and rest? Tsunade rebuked the young Hyuga. Return to your room. I'll be fine, Tsunade-sama, Hinata said to her, expressing more concern for Naruto than her respect for the Senjuku. I'm sorry to say that I am not resting on anything, but I cannot control myself. The Senju sighed and replied that you were just as stubborn as the Gaki himself. It would seem unlikely that I could change your mind, even if Hitomi didn't succeed in that. Before going home, she informed me that it was true. Hinata's expression was slightly embarrassed by the fact that she had once defied her mother. Despite her warning to Hinata that Hayashi would not take this well, Hitomi had already accepted her wish. Considering the shame of being in the hospital, it was doubtful that he would visit his daughter who was struggling with emotional issues. Hitomi had cautioned her daughter to exercise restraint when expressing her emotions publicly. Naruto-kun's decision was relayed to Karen-san, who I asked about her condition. Tsunade raised a grimace and shrugged off her expression, asking if you had checked on her. Ako escorted Karen home and ensured she got some rest. I am unable to fathom why Naruto chose not to save her, but Taiyuya is doing fine. Naruto's poison will not be effective for an extended period, but the seals left on her by him will survive for several days. Reito and Enko's presence means she won't be able to escape. Naruto undoubtedly built up those rooms with enough strength that she can't break free. She could attest to that. It was the first time she and Enko had been trapped there, too. The room of Chie had numerous seals and barriers, including one that was almost impossible for Orochimaru's guard to break free from, particularly since she couldn't gather chakra. In any case, Ako had threatened his ramen and decided to make Chie's room uninhabitable. I'm curious as to why he didn't take Taiyuya's place. Chie's wish was the only thing Hinata could say. Tsunade reconsidered, but discovered that Hinata wouldn't give her any answers. Just as Jiraiya was silent about the strange seal she had found on Naruto's right hand. The secrets were the one thing that she loathed the most about being a shinobi. She had never been able to hold them in good time. Jiraiya and Orochimaru were always the ones in her shadow to unravel those mysteries. The first one specialized in the perverted secrets, while the second one dealt with the more sinister ones. She left the bedroom, as she had to attend to other patients. She anticipated that they would all be making a full recovery. The Hirono girl was the sole individual who appeared to struggle with her trauma. It was more challenging to recover from mental injuries than physical wounds. Tsunade had a pleasant conversation with the girl. She resembled her former self to some extent. Although it brought back several unwelcome memories about Nawaki or Dan, the girl was dependent on help. It's possible that Jiraiya was correct, and this could also benefit her. Despite feeling old due to these children, she would never reveal the fact to the brat who called her granny. Tsunade was hesitant about it, but she would give it a shot. Shizun was even waging her battle to make the girl feel better. It's possible that she could provide the girl with some medical ninjutsu training. Given the girl's interest in her exceptional grasp of chakra control, why wouldn't Tsunade take advantage of the opportunity presented to her? Hinata was completely unaware of this fact. The only thing she wished for was to witness the boy's awakening. Naruto was restless and battling a high fever while sleeping. Tsunade was uncertain about the type of poison Orochimaru had employed. Hinata was unconcerned about his actions. Naruto's awakening was her only wish, she wanted it to happen. When she first saw him in his current state, she was extremely afraid. The only thing Hinata could do was to blame herself for that. She was at fault for it all. She was not capable of defeating Taiyuya. The haunted look in his eyes was visible to her when he told her that Choji had died. She longed to be with him. Her desire to become stronger was equally potent, as it allowed her to stand beside him and assist him in conquering the challenges he faced. She had a sense of helplessness and committed to never experiencing such despair again. "I am responsible for this," he said. "I was warned by Nijin-san. Chie-san cautioned me. However, as a result of my failure, Naruto-kun is injured again. I regret not being able to defeat Taiyuya as quickly as possible." Hinata sighed, "Only hope that. His chakra had stirred a few days ago, and I could have used it to try to connect with him, but he is still unconscious. I loathe this. I was unable to accomplish anything. I am weak and unable to help Naruto-kun. I ask for your understanding, Naruto-kun." Without him, her life would be a shadow of reality, as she knew. Tsunade returned to Naruto's room. After completing her inspections. After falling asleep, Hinata was still holding his frenzied hand in her bandaged hand and had her head propped up against Naruto's bed, with blue hair draped over his shoulder. Tsunade carefully positioned a blanket around Hinata to prevent her from awakening. "You made me sick, brat, but now that you know there's a girl like her waiting for you. She will always be there even when you fall off the rails. You are fortunate, little one, and more often than not, than you think." She whispered to herself, "It's like saying that luck never runs out on me." I remembered images of cuts, poison, and blood rushing through his veins as if it had suddenly become liquid. There was a great deal of suffering. He had experienced the Kyubi charring his flesh, and yet this poison had caused more harm than good. How close did Naruto get to the point of wanting to die? The poison had corroded the Kyubi's chakra, but its healing powers were no longer present. The ideal way to exterminate a careless and worn-out Jinchuriki was with this poison. After feeling shivering from exhaustion, Naruto attempted to open his eyes. It was expected that this would be a challenging endeavor. His mind seemed to be masked by a mist, which caused his brains to slow down and prevent him from managing his own body. He was still alive, at least until he knew it. The events that occurred were remembered by Uzumaki Naruto. The Uchiha was defeated by him, but it was not a decisive victory. The Kyubi wanted him to kill the traitor, but he was unsuccessful in his efforts. He also failed to transport his immobilized body back to Konoha, as requested by the council. He was still unaware of what he had planned to do with Sasuke. Naruto acknowledged that he would act harshly if someone were to murder him, but there was also empathy. Despite the fact that Sasuke's methods caused harm to individuals who were not related to his suffering, he was aware of this. The reason Naruto could not regret his attempt to kill Sasuke was because of this. The village was threatened by him, and Shino and Choji were killed as a result of treason. He had to be stopped immediately. Even so, Naruto was unable to succeed in his mission. The Sharingan wielder that Orochimaru possessed was of great value. The Kyubi I had ample chakra to compete with that asshole, but the gap was too significant. Naruto realized that even if he hadn't been worn out and caught me off guard, would still have lost. Skillfulness was not linked to having a significant amount of chakra. The use of brute power was insufficient to vanquish enemies of that caliber. Naruto found some amusement in his past arrogance, as he believed that even the notorious Sennin could not be trusted without him. Jiraiya and Tsunade were correct in their assessment that he was still too young for that. His eyes were more successful when he tried to open them for the second time. But he was blurry, unclear-headed. In front of him, inscrutable specks of color swirled freely. He was reminded of the peculiar dream he had and the sensation that the bright light had brought to his consciousness. Could it have been a dream? It was surreal, but there was no trace of any clear dream. How did he come up with the ability to remember everything? Was it possible for him to be aware of an island, even though Naruto was blind and tried to move his right hand instead? He desired to encounter the seal once more, which was the divine seal in which the Gekihoko dwelled. His arm could not be moved for whatever reason. I am able to touch my hand. My fingers are moving, but there's something on my arm that caught his eye. The sensation was so comforting that Naruto felt uneasy and asked, "Gaki, I think you should sleep more," while a whispered voice interrupted the conversation. On the other side, there was a blurry line of blonde and green, and Naruto sensed something on his left shoulder. A needle losing in his flesh. Inspire others through your own words, put on the cloud of knowledge and experience. Given the severity of your injury, it's not advisable to move around immediately. According to Bachan, what is she attempting to inject me with? Did I still injure myself? The boy fell asleep while Naruto drifted off to sleep, and Tsunade nodded gently and made eye contact with the pillow beneath. He truly required additional restraint. She was not expecting him to wake up so soon. She remained quiet and moved away from the room, fearing that the young Hyuga heiress would be disturbed by her use of the boy's right arm as a pillow. At that point, how did he feel? The entire operation had been carefully planned and expected to go smoothly. Kakashi was spared, the Uchiha was ordered to leave the village, and Danzo had no qualms about the other two. While Hirono had the potential to be a valuable player in his strategy to attract the Jinchuriki, she was not an effective bargaining tool. She had no unique talent or anything that differentiated her, except for her links to the Jinchuriki and various descendants of Konoha's most influential clans. Although Danzo valued her chakra control, he didn't find it particularly impressive. Order was Danzo's priority, no. It was evident that Sasuke would give up his desires of power to pursue them, even if it were inevitable. What caused Orochimaru's personal protection to deviate from the plan? Danzo was not accustomed to such foolish impatience. Follow-through with missions is crucial. Orochimaru had not failed him in that situation before, but the chaos that occurred during this mission was not a surprise to either of them. The leader of the Root Division was confronted by a young operator with the codename, Sai, who crouched down. There have been some disputed reports. It seems that the Akimichi heir has passed away, and the Yamanaka and Inazuka kin were injured as well. Is there any truth to Sai's statement about the Tsunagakure Jinchuriki? Orochimaru of the Sannin is thought to have caused him serious injuries, according to rumors. The senpai was unable to detect something else, as the pale boy briefly paused, but Danzo could see it. Sai would need to receive additional training to suppress his emotions, which would be a negative outcome. The Hyuga and Nara clans' descendants brought someone to the concealed encampment of the Uzumaki clan, as per their instructions. Senpai was unable to establish the identity of the individual or reason behind it, but considering the other individuals, he was justified in taking one of Orochimaru's imbeciles into custody. Before Sai had the chance to speak, Danzo completed the sentence. It's a terrible thing that we can't even go inside the compound to put an end to it. The foolish individuals were incapable of creating a more significant disaster in this matter. Sai, bring the Hirono girl to me, but ensure that it doesn't raise suspicion for Tsunade, he said with clarity. He desires the girl's trust to become a more effective asset for our cause. The Hirono girl has the potential to enter the Uzumaki grounds and scrutinize the situation. If one of Orochimaru's closest operatives was caught, she could be used to remove the threat in the worst-case scenario. If the Uzumaki boy's secret connections to Jiraiya were exposed, removing her would be a costly mistake for Danzo and his allies. With the genjutsu that bound her to his will, the girl would happily plunge herself into any weapon he'd give her. The only action he had to take was to issue the order. The girl was obliged to do as she pleased. He heard the sound of a chair being crushed while something was rustling. He stated that the window had also been opened up. Despite the subdued and clinical atmosphere, he found solace in the smell of fresh air entering. He heard the sounds of the village that was awakening. He felt it was cruel. 2 of my classmates have died and the village has been continuously trying to cope with their deaths. Was the person's presence in a secretive village like Konoha meaningless? The burial was held with pity, and Naruto remembered the stone that Kakashi had brought to his aid during his time in Team 7. Despite the loss of life, it was not affected by any fatalities. According to Shinobi, life was only a part of the journey towards death. It was a regular aspect of the job. Despite his desire to protest, what actions could Naruto take given his upbringing as a shinobi and the growing sense of disgust towards his profession, which made him feel even more uncomfortable than other children working in similar positions? Why was this world driven by idiosyncrasies? Nevertheless, he felt too feeble to express his feelings. Nevertheless, this time he was able to move his right arm. His eyes opened with ease, and his vision was not as blurry. The hospital you just saw was a terrible choice to make. I find myself in this strange place every time I engage in a major fight, as it seems so predictable and unengaging, Naruto admitted. He was not fond of the nurses, the sterile, white environment, and especially the fact that he couldn't enjoy ramen without difficulty. It was to be expected that Orochimaru would not have survived the encounter. He asked, "How are you feeling?" as he moved his body towards the direction of the chair a few moments earlier. Naruto took pause in his unclear thought to notice the familiar face of Konoha's most notorious pervert. "Yo, Hokage," the boy muttered softly. Despite being slightly ahead of his son, the Godame Hokage handed him a plastic cup filled with water and proceeded to say, "I need some water. Take your drink at a leisurely pace, and you'll be well prepared for the situation." Naruto was haunted by the tinges of anxiety and fatigue echoing in his grim tone. The man was not as drained as Naruto. Despite his efforts, Naruto was unable to raise his head above his own. In response to the boy's difficulties, Jiraiya stepped in and assisted Naruto on his way back, with unexpected kindness. "Thanks to all of you." Naruto smirked slightly to indicate that he's not up to par. "That poison is not a joke," Jiraiya declared. "Tsunadeheim is capable of fixing everything, but you were able to scare her significantly. She came close to sabotaging my lights when she believed I was responsible." Sasuke? The same goes for Orochimaru. "We had a big mistake, right?" Naruto sighed. Jiraiya uttered the words, "You are not as good as the rest of us, but you were what could be described as a clusterfuck." It wasn't entirely truthful, to be sure. Despite their defeat, he had also acquired valuable insights on Akatsuki, but Naruto was not required to know about it. "I understand that you and Gaara aimed to assist your friends, but the Jonin who went with you must assume responsibility for that action since it was not your intention. They granted you access to the place. They accompanied you. Clearly, it was their decision, liberating you from any guilt. Reito and Enko-chan, Hokage are not to blame," Naruto said with a smirk. "I'm at fault, not theirs. I am entitled to receive a penalty for any wrongdoing." Don't bring up that. They both escaped with flying colors. In addition to your poisoning, their decision was the appropriate one. If you hadn't left, the other children would have likely died or suffered a fate worse than death, in the case of the girls. It's unlikely that the council would lend their support to punishing Reito or Anko. The clan leaders were compelled to vote against that decision. Naruto stated that they made an effort, but were unsuccessful. Danzo? No, not that old bat Koharu. After Danzo threw his toe into the ground, Jiraiya sighed with weariness. While I admit it's not my place to approve of such a stupid act, my viewpoint on you has already been challenged, so I'm glad I wasn't obliged to reject it. In the end, the other kids also got away with some light punishment. Shikamaru, who holds the top spot in the group, was held responsible for most of it and is expected to lose his position for now. Correspondingly, it is forbidden for all of them to take part in the upcoming Chunin exams, and they must undertake 50 D-rank or 15 C-rank missions for only half the salary. Naruto admitted to being hesitant when he said, "That's not hard." Jiraiya shrugged off the accusation of insubordination and facing a 10-year prison sentence. The act of insubordination is a grave offense in shinobi-dominated villages. It's safe to say that this was much less harsh than it used to be. It is a given that this would not have happened if there were no clan heirs involved. The same type of favoritism is present. Before the word ramen was spoken, civilian children would have already been decapitated in jail. You're now the Hokage, have a new interpretation? Modify it. Jiraiya remarked with disbelief that modifying the foundations of Konoha would be effortless. If I were to attempt such an activity in a straightforward manner, I wouldn't be able to hold my position for long. Kiddo, that's not how the world operates. We are not responsible for our own actions. While I can control the circumstances in a book, my experience is that it's entirely different in real life. Despite our efforts, we are not capable of entirely shaping our own destiny. Even so, it does not mean that we are solely victims of destiny, as the Hyuga maintain. There are situations where we can choose to be compelled into them or forced into certain choices. If you want to name bounded rationality, then just do it. What comes next in a series? Naruto inquired. It's genuinely a pattern that is being followed. The relationship between cause and effect, as well as actions and reactions. Naruto, we are all living in this world. We are both affected by it and capable of affecting it. Naruto quipped, you're left unsure of whether to label it as defeatism or optimism, while laughing. I expected you to have a range of grand schemes for the village. I had some great ideas for my new novels, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to secure the crystal ball. According to Naruto's sarcasm, you were surprised to find that Ji-san had done the same thing. I apologize for that, but he made me promise to keep it completely hidden. The letter stated that the person's proficiency in obtaining information is sufficient to function without this artifact, and they will not require it. Bachan made a threat to kill us both upon learning that you had the item. The old man's instruction on how to use the object was accompanied by a scroll, where she expressed her belief that no hot spring is safe due to excessive abuse for its sake. I'm not bad at all. Why? Can't I believe that? Naruto asked in a dead-eyed tone. I recall hearing about you trying to legalize spying on the hot spring during your first day in office, and it seemed like everyone was talking about the same thing. The senior man snorted at his peers, coughing up information. That's not the way to deal with your Godame Hokage, Naruto, he said. Naruto's Irokage was the subject of his long, blank stare, while a small muscle near his left eye persisted in its twitching. It didn't take long for both of them to start laughing, as they were no longer able to control their emotions. My chest is still hurting, Naruto cried out in pain. He didn't find laughter particularly appealing, but he had been unsuccessful in suppressing it. How many days did it take for me to be better? Why haven't I cured it? Jiraiya inquired. It was a pretty miserable day. Haim caused you to sleep for a day by drugging you, as the poison blocked the Kyuubi's chakra. Your slow healing is atypical, which is why I believe it's important to keep in mind that you're doing it slowly. In all honesty, you've woken up earlier than we had anticipated. She'll be irritated that she wasn't present when you woke up. Brat, you have caused us to worry. Please accept my apology. The situation was solely due to bad luck, and no one could have predicted it. It's important to note that you were in a fight with Orochimaru. The likelihood of a successful fight by him was minimal once he had taken it seriously. The vastness of your chakra reserves is insufficient to bridge the significant gap between experience and skill. I acknowledge the need to train. I have a responsibility to learn how to handle the elements, Naruto murmured. Return to your home. Connect with the world, Jiraiya, she said, unsure of what the boy was mumbling. She then blinked for a brief moment. As someone my age, you're doing pretty well with Katon and Futon, but having started out fairly early in your game of Raiton. Irakage, I need to build up my strength. Significantly more potent. I must be able to repel the Kyuubi. Without the Kyuubi, I cannot compete with Sasuke's power and strength. If I can't face people like Orochimaru, how will I ever be? Jiraiya exclaimed softly. I discovered that you were able to successfully carry out the Rasengan attack. With the Kyuubi's assistance, Naruto nodded and said, it was quite stable. As a child spymaster, what was your experience like? The jutsu results in a distinct form of devastation. It appears that you have overtaxed the object. Jiraiya ruffled her way through Naruto's blonde hair, and I believe that the first thing I should teach is how to control his body. I'll caution Tsunadeheim, resulting in more individuals joining. Your teammates were told that she expected you to wake up in an hour, and they will be here soon. With his trademark scowl, he continued, I'd like to know how things are going with you and that adorable Hyuga girl. Gaara was on par with her determination, and she displayed comparable levels of perseverance. Neither of them left your side. Gaara? Asked Naruto, causing him to blink and disregard Jiraiya's comment about Hinata. He could recall noticing the blue blur on top of his arm now that he had thought about it. Hinata must have been the one who caused it. Despite his misgivings, he was still happy with the outcome. What was the meaning behind Naruto's statement that love is the essence of existence, and why couldn't he simply acknowledge it in his own words? He had pledged to keep the Gekihoko situation completely confidential. It's surprising to learn that Gaara only allowed a small number of people to enter. When his sensei arrived in Konoha yesterday, he didn't even leave. It wasn't until Tsunade and I made a promise to be guarded that he actually went to see Baki. He threatened to devastate the entire village if we didn't fulfill our obligation. Naruto was in a confused state when he asked, Baki, is Gaara going to go home? He expressed his satisfaction for Gaara that he could return to the place where a friend resided. Naruto was aware that Gaara would have a tough time initially. Naruto was confident that Gaara would eventually be accepted by Tsunade, given the reinforcement of the seal and Gaara's ability to control his temper. Naruto had his hopes that it would happen in the same way. He yearned for hope. If Gaara had the ability, he would have the capability to do it. Naruto acknowledged that his selfish perspective was self-serving, but he also felt bereaved that the burden of his brother would leave him behind. Naruto's connection with others was unprecedented. Tsunade is troubled by Otagaku's bold actions, Jiraiya whispered in a shiver. In the middle of their desert, Gaara is a formidable force that cannot be beaten. Orochimaru would have had second thoughts before launching an attack on Suna during Gaara's presence. The same applies to Iwa as well. Brat, I have come into your world, Jiraiya muttered to his bewildered blonde companion. You can take that hat from me, but you have to deal with that as well. Besides the inaccurate documentation. At this point, I can appoint you and Bachan as council elders, Naruto joked. I'll be cleaning up the village, and I need your help to do the same. A cold voice rang out and asked, who is Bachan? Naruto noticed some bulging veins on her forehead. Jiraiya scrutinized another bulging object, as the lab coats highlighted specific areas of her physique. With a submissive look to the boy who insulted her, Senju Tsunade stood nearby. Naruto's expression was a pale smile, and he admitted to, oh, crap. You're not going to beat up someone who's already hurt, aren't you? He asked her as she approached him with closed eyes. It's possible that this would result in an additional few days of hospitalization for the patient, but Tsunade chose to embrace the boy instead of a vigorous flick of his forehead or fist in stomach. Jiraiya's jealousy was so startled by Naruto that he didn't even know it. His vision would not be affected by her large bust, making it impossible for him to see. Tsunade whispered, Bachan. Do you believe that 8 servings is adequate? Karen replied politely. He'll have to get up and stop sleeping if we want more ramen, Kiba declared in a grunting voice. Karen had been cramming for ramen noodles all the way to the hospital from Ichiraku's. Due to her lack of speech, Hinata was not particularly helpful. It was quite unsettling to observe how everyone had transformed. With Naruto on the brink of death, Choji and Shino injured, and Sasuke's treason ruining his own life, Kiba's thoughts always seemed to turn back in anger. "You're doing it again," Karen declared. "The nurses will not allow you to enter if you continue to look angry. This whole thing is utterly ridiculous. How can I escape my anger?" Kiba writhed in frustration. He didn't mean to be angry with them, but he felt uneasy about it. "It would be great to have that man, who is a disloyal traitor, with me so that I could eliminate him alive," Hinata once again observed as he looked up. For some strange reason, Kiba felt a slight fear when she looked at him. "She may also kick his buttocks," she said. In the past few days, she refrained from using self-induced suicidal behavior due to Naruto's injuries. As expected, a Hyuga's dad was utterly devoid of any sense of responsibility. "It's a given that the man is brain dead. Didn't it seem like our classmate was being polite and wanted to get revenge on Shino, but instead, he went to Kurenai-sensei and orders her to tighten the leash and release Hinata from sight? My wish is to kick that bastard in the nuts while I'm surrounded by her team." If I were to cause an incident with the Hyuga clan, Karen warned that he would be castrated by his mother. In fact, he witnessed a scared and possibly unrecognizable young girl hurrying towards her mother. "I'm fed up with this. I want to become strong." Those adults who were talking about Naruto couldn't tell me what to do, as they are too strong. While some in the village were altering their views on Uzumaki, others maintained that he was an evil being. The lack of a clan, however, was more positive as most people saw Naruto as some sort of hero. The Ichibi was stopped by him, and now he had to face the infamous Orochimaru of the Sannin. The speed at which the rumor had spread without any knowledge was evident. Regrettably, there were as many false rumors as genuine ones. There were those who suggested that Naruto was pleased for the Uchiha to depart, as they had previously fought each other. They considered the loss of the Uchiha bloodline as a significant setback for Konoha, and blamed Naruto rather than Sasuke for his actions of betrayal towards the village. The fact that two people had died as a result of Sasuke's betrayal was felt more deeply by Kiba than others. The concern for the Uchiha blood and an uncontrollable Jinchuriki was much higher than the loss of Choji and Shino. Shino's death was deemed regrettable by some, who pointed out that he was considered a child of his family. Despite Shikamaru's expression stopping him, Kiba was stopped from attacking by Karen and Hinata, who had to restrain him. There was a chilling sensation inside the Inuzuka's brown eyes. "My goal is to become strong in order to assist you. Shizunichan and Tsunade-sama came to training with me," Karen exclaimed, then looked up at Hinata, who nodded in agreement. The Hyuga had the most compelling reasons to improve, including her love for Naruto, her clan, the branch, Suzaku, and her mother. If it weren't for Hitomi, Hinata would have probably been labeled with the caged bird seal. "I will be taught by Kurenai-sama, Suzaku Samako, and Okasuma to become a stronger person. I must put in the effort to achieve my goals. It's a challenging task." Naruto-kun is a character who never fails to push his limits, just like him. Hopefully, I will be able to fight my own issues during the next time. Due to my frailness, Naruto-kun won't be hurt during the next time. Shikamaru's uncle would not have stopped me if I had been faster. Had I not brought Sasuke-san back to Konoha, Naruto-kun would have been able to defeat Orochimaru. Karen said, "Geez, Kiba-kun can't hold his anger, and on this wet Sunday are as dark as a graveyard. As a team, is it necessary to support each other? Although I'm not quite as close to Nissan, would you be willing to engage in conversation instead of just bawling about them? Furthermore, please don't start ranting about the civilians who are insulting Nis, Kiba-kun." Karen-chan expressed regret to Hinata, who nodded her head absently but still spoke the truth to her. Unlike Kiba, Karen threatened to speak in unison with Kiba-kun, but cautioned that she would seek help from Tsum-san and Hanan. "Alright, I'll do it." Shouldn't women be bossy like me? If that sounds harsh, I'll tell Enko-nichan to give him some extra evasion training. Oh, no, Karen. That's just so cruel, Kiba said. The snake mistress's hysteria made Akamaru feel terrified. He squirmed into Kiba's jacket more than he had previously done. Enko's statement about snakes viewing dogs as a delicacy was not immediately apparent, leaving uncertainty as to whether she had been joking or not. Akamaru was not prepared to take the risk. After the incident, Naruto muttered, "I was in bad shape, but you don't have to worry about me, Bachan." He admitted that he had already tested numerous things with her. Although the Kyuubi team may not be helpful, he ensures my speedy recovery. Tsunade retorted that there is no danger in anything, which made it all the more alarming. After entering overbearing mother mode, Jiraiya had already bailed and the case was on the books. Despite the doubts of blondes, they believed that he had paperwork to do, and didn't mean to write his own smooch, which was also considered paperwork in his perverted world. Besides Shizune, you're the only one who holds a special place in my heart for family. Naruto expressed his dissatisfaction by stating that, "I'm not on the same page as you, even though I've become a bit of baka like my dirty teammate. I'm not ready to do that, so I haven't figured that out yet." According to Tsunade, your ratio of missions to hospital stays is significantly higher than that of Jiraiya. Stand on your arm and hold it out. Your fingers will need to be tested as I require more blood. Your nervous system was also affected by the poison, so I'm not taking any risks. But no one budge. The new teammate was greeted by this image when they arrived on the field. Seeing the horror of Naruto's death, Kiba and Karen couldn't help but get mad at each other. It was not as well known to Hinata. Due to her fidgeting, she was unsure of how to approach Naruto and present herself in a proper manner. He had embraced her tightly. She was unable to be around him anymore due to her inability to do so. Seeing him awake again brought her great joy, as did Karen. Karen woke up to find herself Nii-san, and declared, "You're awake." The moment was lost to Hinata, leaving her feeling slightly disappointed. "Alright, I say YUP. Until I am knocked out again by Bachan, at least." With a smirk, Hyuga blurted out, "Wow, we've ordered ramen." As if the argument were to stop Tsunade. Naruto's attention was swiftly captured by that one holy word. "Hold on for the ramen," said one. "Remember to prioritize your health and avoid ramen, which may not be as nutritious as you might assume. I hope you will eat something that would help you recover, such as, nope. Freaky. How can we make the most of technology to achieve our goals? I'm not alone in savoring my ramen, Bachan." The trio was anxiously watching from a distance during the stare-off. Unbeknownst to them, their sensei had also appeared. Yuhi Kurenai smirked, "Tsunade-sama, I don't think you could win Naruto-kun in a fight over ramen." Despite being Sarutobi Kurenai, she couldn't cope with the challenges of getting married. Could it be that she and Asuma hadn't planned a party to mark the occasion? "Kurenai-sensei?" Kiba asked, uncertain why she was present, and stared at him. "My genitals are not coming out this morning," Kurenai exclaimed with a smile. "They had a scheduled training time of almost an hour ago." "We failed to remember," Kiba retorted. "The announcement made by Godame-sama about Naruto's waking up caused us to lose our sense of direction. It's clear to me that I am aware that I will have to increase my efforts, as I do not want to create three Kakashi-act-like characters in the future." Suddenly, a certain masked shinobi felt uneasy for reasons that were beyond his comprehension. "Tsunade-sama, can you join us temporarily to take over? I believe these three would like to replace the doting element on Naruto-kun." "I wasn't panicking, I was checking if and Naruto said in a smirk, "You are Bachan." With a wide smile, he responded to her gaze by saying, "I love you back." Sticky braid, she sported, wafting through his frizzy hair. What was the reason behind his resemblance to Nawaki in both appearance and behavior? Today, however, it's only the moment. She tried to save her face in a futile attempt to show that she was being stubborn and not willing to comply. Even Naruto could see the woman struggle to resist. Naruto reflected on his life before and after, wondering how it would have been different if he had not grown up in a hateful environment like orphanages or the isolated confinement of Hyuga clan. Haruki had to wait for a while before being able to overcome the emotional barriers that Naruto had created by isolating him. Naruto's belief in a father was shared by Haruki, who was more impressed with him than the man who had crushed the fox into pieces. Despite understanding Minato's motives, Naruto didn't find it enjoyable to be subjected to those predicaments. Hinata, as well as Karen, for your part. You should also be aware of this training, given that it pertains to their learning. I would appreciate it if you could follow me for a brief period so we can talk about how to handle this situation, okay? It appears that she and Shizune had taken Karen as an apprentice, which she needed to coordinate with Kurenai, who was still her sensei. According to Tsunade, Hinata's Byakugan and exceptional chakra control made her an excellent doctor. Naruto was alone in his hospital room with Kiba and Akamaru after they left. The latter seized the chance to jump out of Kiba's jacket and sniff his own juice. In Naruto's vicinity, there were various scents that the young boy had no idea about. The machinery was encircled by the scent of various drugs and disinfectant sprays, and so on. The pup was fascinated by the odors emanating from its coat. The most significant aspect of Naruto's story is that he can now concentrate on his ramen. Kiba was taken aback and expressed some discomfort, as well as growing disbelief. Naruto's first 2 intakes were likened to inhaling his breath, rather than consuming them. I never thought it would be possible to get away with that kind of stuff, said the Inuzuka, who then smiled at Naruto's contentment. This is a small paper napkin in front of me. Kiba was hesitant as Naruto smiled and apologized, confessing that he had made a mistake. Akamaru's involvement in cleaning Naruto's hands was a significant factor. Thanks for the ramen, I'll never tire of it, Naruto said softly. I was impressed by Bachan's ability to pull off a dramatic moment where she even considers herself an outsider. Dude, you were in terrible shape with all the blood, Kiba muttered. At least, inform me that you flogged that traitor. Naruto's expression was a grim one. Who is this one? Orochimaru terminated me before I fully comprehended the situation. Given the damage to his washed arm, I believe Sasuke will require more time to recuperate than I did. Good. Naruto's response to the question, what a vindictive way of doing things, was humorous. If your entire family was eliminated, how would you react? I have a partial understanding of his motives, but what he did was his own. His criminal activities and betrayal should result in his being hunted and brought back to the village. The council will demand that, at the very least. Naruto spat out, they would not want to lose their precious Sharingan. I personally wish I had the opportunity to witness the illegitimate's death instead of something else. Shino's death was caused by him. Kiba encouraged Choji to shut down and calm down, as he had ended up like him. Your chakra is opening up. If I spit on you like this, they'll kill me. Unless Karen or Tsunade-sama intervenes, Hinata will be the one to cause me harm. I was taken aback by her terrifying nature. I'm sorry. Kiba proceeded to finish his sentence with a growl, acknowledging that it was just damn frustrating. I acknowledge that. Karen spent half an hour chastising me for being too angry. It's likely that Tsunade-sama will be more annoying than her. That's what Nei-chan, as Naruto informed me yesterday. If you hurt her, I'll kill you. Alright, Kiba gulped and consumed with water as she was shaken by the unexpected twist in the exchange. I don't mean to hurt her, but she's clingy, Naruto exclaimed. I found it amusing to playfully joke around with you. Idiots are not a part of our vocabulary. Naruto uttered the words, dog breath, in a smirk. He didn't give much thought to how his relationship with Kiba had evolved since he first joined the Team 8. The transfer of Shino to Team 7 and Naruto's arrival initially angered Kiba. Despite Kiba's acceptance of the Uzumaki in their friendship, Naruto failed to notice the changes. The fox was manipulating my thoughts. Naruto believed that my role in the team had changed significantly, but I was too distracted by my own paranoia and attempts to control my anger. I'm curious about the extent of what that dream signifies to me. What was going on in my life, and what things to do during that time that need to be addressed. After Shino and Choji, Naruto came to the realization that life can be brutally short. Kiba retorted, saying, "I hear you shouting fox turd," before responding with a call from Akamaru. "Ass sniffer is the way to go." Karen muttered, "What the hell are you and your husband doing here? What's the reason for you, Nissan? Waiting until you'd already consumed enough ramen to answer, I was hungry." The faces of Karen, Hinata, and Kuranai were alike in their expressions of being addicted to ramen. 2 days duration. 2 insane days. Naruto expressed his appreciation for Shizunichan's change, stating that she is more accepting of her role than Bachan. "Naruto-kun, I'm afraid you were so worried," Hinata said with a smile. Naruto was ultimately released from the hospital. His endurance had regained, and this final day had been a misery for him. It's probable that the scar on his shoulder will endure for a while. Naruto's initial scar was a result of the Kyuubi's chakra flowing through his system, and he always healed perfectly. Although Tsunade had found an antidote, the chakra that was blocked by the poisoning slowed down his healing considerably. The impact would soon fade away. Naruto was either a Jinchuriki or allied with the Uzumaki clan, who were known for their formidable life forces. Naruto's healing rate would have been much faster than the average if he were not a Jinchuriki. She said, "I know. And I like how serious she is. To put it simply, a significant amount. Hospitals do not appeal to me. The fact that she instructed me to avoid ramen was an act of cruelty." Naruto was apprehensive that they would meet Tsunade before he left the hospital, as they passed the corner. He was taken aback to find that there was someone else waiting for him. Hinata was apparently surprised by the news of his Sakura-san, but not entirely surprised, given the historical connections between the Haruno and Naruto kingdoms. Despite Sasuke's evident mistakes, Sakura had always supported him. Sakura was so caught up in the chanting of, "Ah, Hinata-san, Naruto. Naruko-ba," that she almost snapped. "You're leaving today," Shizen-senpai told me. "I wanted to have a chat," the pinkette replied. Naruto's eyes had a rough perception of her, in reality. Her behavior seemed to be somewhat unreliable, at least to Hinata. It appeared as though Sakura was not entirely truthful, as if she spoke the words but did not have faith in them, which was unusual considering her high energy. Naruto's response of, "Yes," left him looking embarrassed. "I had the thought of apologizing, but I didn't," she said softly before bowing to her. "You were right, but I treated you badly. You were correct in your assessment of Sasuke-ku. Sashalbo-san? I never expected him to betray Konoha and side with Orochimaru, even though he had some problems. I'm not entirely sure if I want to comprehend it, either." Shino was not followed by Hinata, despite the fact that it was more honest and personal. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that Sakura had altered in some way and that something inside her had been shattered. Hinata was unable to determine how she would react if Naruto had done such a thing. The betrayal of this nature was almost as bad as his death. Despite Hinata's lack of understanding how Sakura had kept her faith in Sasuke, she felt sorry for him for his actions. The fact that Sakura had initially accused Naruto of causing Sasuke's darkness was something she could never forget. Her life was altered by her betrayal. Naruto was similarly perplexed, but without the clarity of the Byakugan, as he stared at the girl with pink hair. There wasn't really anything wrong with her either, but something about it made him feel strange. It seemed as though her heart had been suffocated by all the emotions. But like Hinata, he thought that the effect of Sasuke's defection and Shino's death was due to it. Naruto perceived vague similarities between Sakura's emotions and the peculiar umbu he encountered while being monitored by them. It seemed strange that Naruto was unable to perceive their emotions, as if they were empty inside. Is it conceivable that Sasuke's actions had caused her to feel the effects of his past actions, and Sakura may have also experienced them? You had faith in him, why did you change? Sakura, I. Shino-kun. She burst into tears. The lack of strong emotional support for the display was somewhat surprising. Those senbon were so intense that I couldn't sense them, but I was able to see them. Despite the bitch's understanding, I couldn't help but notice Sasuke standing there. There was no response from him to stop the archer's attempt to kill Shino. According to Naruto, Shino was caught off guard and killed by Sasuke. The only thing that Sasuke is concerned with at the moment is finding a way to get to Itachi and seek revenge against his clan. Despite this, he still felt somewhat uncertain. Naruto didn't feel like he was capable of condemning Sasuke for wanting to seek revenge on his mistresses. I did too many bad things myself, she said. My darkest thoughts were triggered by more than just the Kyuubi, and I now understand why. I am also a wicked individual. I was oblivious to my true self, and it may still be today. Sakura took a surprise from others by accepting the fact that she knew, saying, I know. If Shino had survived, it would have been different, but it appeared that Sakura's devotion to Sasuke was broken by his death. Naruto and Hinata were unaware of Sakura's encounter with Danzo. Without Danzo, Sakura may not have been aware of Sasuke's actions and instead sought some explanation for his behavior. Sakura's only true love was him, and he had been her sole partner. How could she abandon him? Inner Sakura was completely unaware of this. Sakura's emotions were confined to inner Sakura since Danzo had cast his Kotoamatsukami on him. Danzo had subdued Sakura's mind to the powerful yet subtle entanglement of his genjutsu. She had become a loyal participant in his campaign to establish dominance over the community. The only thing that could change inner Sakura's status was being a spectator. Baka Sakura is regaining her place in Naruto's heartthrob. He is too preoccupied with Hinata for her to be able to win him over, so I don't think she can. It would be a dangerous situation if he chooses to forgive her. I apologize to her, but I believe that Naruto is the rightful one and I wanted to make it clear. Did she pay attention? The secluded persona felt that Sasuke had already caused us to end up in disarray. It was pointless to shout her displeasure at her main character. Danzo had isolated inner Sakura, even if he hadn't been aware of her disturbed thoughts, as a reflection of how she felt. The fact that inner Sakura's voice was not heard continued. I'm at a standstill and struggling to find my footing. Suffered a terrible beating. Danzo's crazy ideology was accepted by the idiot me. She follows Naruto's orders and goes after him, much like her loyal puppet. Tsunade's lack of knowledge about the old me meant that she was compelled to fall for the lie. Losing both our teammates was a significant loss, which made her understand the situation. It's possible that I was foolish in thinking that Naruto would come out of the closet. His hidden persona caused him to feel a certain amount of her emotions, even though it was distorted, rather than feeling them as empty as Root Umbu did. The duo had continued in silence, their minds preoccupied with what had happened after the encounter with Sakura. Naruto expressed his surprise as they crossed the barren path that encircled the Uzumaki estate, saying, "It's strange. I mean, if Sakura wants to lose her faith in Sasuke, then what does that imply?" Hinata hesitated when she heard "why yes." She did not appear to be. I'm not sure what she meant, but she seemed to have a problem. Is it possible that Hinata is experiencing trauma and reacts differently to it? She admitted, "I'll ask Okasama." She would also inquire about Suzaku, but Hinata was not able to disclose the summon contract to anyone. She had made a commitment to do so. I guess it could be, maybe. Naruto shrugged off any negative feelings towards her. However, she did experience a strange sensation. It's possible that Hinata was correct, and the trauma may have been a contributing factor. Perhaps the most reasonable explanation is that Sakura was not mentally strong. The amount of weight she has lost is staggering. According to Naruto-kun, are you truly healed? Certainly not quite, he said with a smile. I'm not too bad on my shoulder and arm, but they're a little painful overall. Despite my obligation to Shizunichan, I refuse to train. You're a very thoughtful person, insofar as she was asking, Hinata murmured. Had something happen? I know there has been a lot going on, but I didn't want to talk about the hug, she said. She also refrained from making it too obvious that she wanted to discuss the incident. Is it not true that the battle is significant? Naruto sighed to himself, acknowledging that he had learned an odd truth about his purpose. He was aware that he couldn't discuss the Gekihoko or its ability to demonstrate the island to him. Naruto was unable to articulate the doors he had observed. He had pledged to keep the information under wraps. If not, he could inquire about Uzumaki-Ogakure's history with Tsunade and Jiraiya. The divine seal on Hinata's right hand was not linked to the curiosity, but it was beyond his comprehension. She wouldn't have any knowledge of the matter. Uzumaki was not taught much to their generation. After discovering that Konoha and Uzumaki had formed an alliance, Naruto inquired as to why. What caused their exclusion from the history textbooks provided by the academy? I need to develop my character, he eventually responded. Much more powerful than before. Anko-san leaves Tayuya powerless, Hinata said, partially concealing her disappointment. Can you tell me how she's doing? She had been so near to the subject, yet he had not caught up with him. She didn't hold him responsible, but she held herself accountable for not having the courage to discuss it. The fact that Anko is so eager to use poisons is quite unsettling. Tayuya-san doesn't appear to be particularly pleased with that. Hinata stated that she was not very content. Naruto's expression was cocky as he inferred that it was not an accurate statement. Reito and Anko had alerted them that the girl with red hair was not very satisfied with being held captive. On the other hand, he had to engage in conversation with her. Jiraiya had previously made a deal that it would be worthwhile to win the girl's loyalty. Who was aware of the information that Orochimaru's guard could disclose? However, Naruto discovered that the cursed seal had a significant impact. The strength it possessed was far greater than what Anko had to endure, and even the snake mistress confessed to having trouble controlling herself at times. Tayuya's foul power was utilized for a certain period, unlike Anko. Naruto concluded that Tayuya's seal was more advanced, which he believed would make him more effective. The seal's power may have caused Anko to feel resentful, and Orochimaru to reject her as a failed experiment, Naruto said, half-heartedly shunning the book that Tayuya had given him. I thought it might be a misstep to enter this room alone, considering my superior strength, but also her inability to produce chakra with less than half of my usual reserves. Nevertheless, I prefer to gain her trust instead of trying to harm her through hard work. Tayuya reacted with opposition, but his viewpoint was different. Naruto had to react when she attempted to punch his nose. Naruto seized the girl by the wrist, stopped her from loudly cursing, and pushed her back. The next thing you want to do is talk to me, Naruto sighed. The Ichibi would have been able to extract the chakra of the cursed seal, just like Gaara. Naruto contemplated making an insulating seal, but with the added feature of a keyhole, before repeating his mistakes. He had an agitated thought that suggested he was the outcome of an elephant having sexual relations with a pig. Nevertheless, he was unaware of how the disturbed mind would perceive cross-species breeding. A singing chef would be obligated to motivate the two animals to perform the deed. You've heard the phrase, shut up. Just remove your shirt, I'll come back, he murmured softly. He remained silent and exited the room, shutting the door behind him. Getting some ink and his best brush would be necessary before proceeding. The process of drawing that seal would require some time. Gaara had already read most of the seal beforehand, as he was familiar with the fundamentals of his seal due to Temari. I've barely caught a glimpse of Gaara, at least from my perspective. It took a considerable amount of time for him and Temari to finish the new peace treaty, as they were still staying with Baki. The elders and the clan leaders' short-sightedness had left Jiraiya feeling frustrated. They were unaware of the fact that Tsunagakure had attacked them because they were struggling financially. Many of Suna's missions were taken over by Konoha, which contributed to the financial difficulties. Despite the fact that many Ryo were acquired for those missions, was the conflict worth it? Jiraiya disagreed and Naruto agreed with him after explaining the situation. Nevertheless, they were not clan leaders. Every individual appeared to desire more money, power, influence, and other things. Minor conflicts between clans and childish scheming due to their position among the strongest communities in Konoha. Individuals are foolish. They are always jealous of others and never satisfied. Why is it not possible for people to acknowledge that we are a united village instead of individual clans? She mumbled that the blonde had just said something disgusting, "Screw my shirt off." She stumbled upon the unclean mark, "Did you dare take off my shirt?" and then ran back to her bed. In fact, she was aware that something was not right. The noisy feline claimed that she had been smuggled into the community. She was locked away in this room after arriving. The space was sizable, well lit through a peculiar ceiling system on the ceiling, and tastefully furnished. The most exceptional correctional facility Taiyuya had ever laid eyes on or heard of. Naturally, she had envisioned the possibility of a catch. Her captivity was being held in quarantine like a rare bird's golden cage, and now her predator had turned bright. Despite being beaten up to pieces, she was left with no choice but to endure the pain and even refuse to end her life. Orochimaru would be doomed if she refused. She, being a kunoichi, was aware of the inevitable but harsh reality of what happened after her capture. She had no idea that a child like him would be like this. Nevertheless, he was a refuge for samurai, or jinchuriki. And the tales that circulated, including in Otogakure, all had one common thread: the human-made companionship of demons became unhumane. The skills of rapping, particularly those that are notoriously cruel, are especially appalling. The brat's question is likely a response to his status as jinchuriki, which suggests that being part of the demon caste system can lead to sexual desires. "Shut up, Taiyuya," he shouted with disbelief before leaning back and forth on the bed. "I'm not a fan of this behavior, so I can't choose between chakras and the crazy bitch that keeps on feeding me. What do you think? This incompetent feline converses with me as if I were another person. Why couldn't he just kill me?" She asked, her eyes reddening with emotion. She was cognizant of the reason. The winner had the authority to determine the outcome of the defeated and reap the rewards of victory. "I'm not prone to falling quickly." Despite Taiyuya's mistaken belief, Naruto entered the room with his arms full of books, paper, brushes, and ink, seemingly unprepared for what was to come next. The voice that was so snarky asked him if he could have saved the girl's life. He grumbled, "Yeah," without even noticing her. "All you need to do is lay down on the bed." Taiyuya growled as he said, "Filthy trash." "Naruto," he asked, "what's up with you, dude, duh?" Only to gasp in response to the question. Naruto witnessed Taiyuya's furious, yet unclothed appearance. His eyes were fixed on her small and slender figure, with her lively breasts and the hair between her legs visible in every direction. The first time he saw a fully nude girl up close, his mind struggled to process the entire situation, but some parts of his body responded immediately and unnecessarily. Taiyuya snorted, "What the hell is up with you? Rape?" All the books, scrolls, brushes, and ink fell from his arms. "You have no idea what I plan to do with you." Hurry, I'll seal the eerie mark that Orochimaru left on you. I'm not kidding, Tebeo, roared Naruto, half expecting him to speak. Despite her wide shirt, she looked more curvy than what Naruto had anticipated, particularly from a girl acting as young as Tayuya. The girl's age was not equivalent to that of an adult woman, as she appeared to be only a year older than him. The fact that she was not as curvy as his Oiroke no Jutsu made the situation worse. It was a form of entertainment for Naruto, but it didn't have the same impact as seeing someone his age like this. Tayuya retorted, I wonder if I am a demon. If you refer to me as a demon again, I'll stop being nice. Naruto managed to shut his eyes and avoid his scowling face, which was as red as a beet, by wearing freakish clothing. I only wanted to get rid of the shirt so I could work on that cursed seal. The thought of putting on some sort of underwear was like shit, and Tayuya felt like he couldn't do anything about it anymore. She felt like a complete idiot, and the worst was in fact. Her anger was triggered by it. She has never experienced such a high level of embarrassment in her life. You mentioned that you wanted to introduce me to your clan. Naruto's response to the suggestion of undressing reverberates like that, without even being considered. If she hadn't already put on her clothes, would that have been a bad decision? He briefly eased his nerves, but when he went to Hinata, it was utterly wrong. The situation was made much worse by the collision of the two images. It was not a smart move to think about the timid Hyuga heiress with her face burnt in the nude while trying to soothe him. Tayuya's initial perception of the situation was completely incorrect, and he should not have to worry about it now. If he continued to blush beyond his natural level, she would be mistaken. Are you aware of the seal that I spoke about? Tayuya muttered quickly before finally getting back on her pants. The bandages she used to cover her chest were a mess, and she had difficulty keeping her breasts from moving with high speed. Nevertheless, she was too upset to execute it correctly. She yelled out, "This is not for you, bro," and proceeded to throw the linen. Naruto inquired, "Do you think it's necessary to look at my back? The shape of my neck is what I'm referring to when I say this. It's on my crooked neck." "Good," he said with an awkward giggle, trying to make the situation less serious. "I had a moment where I thought, wow, it was on your chest or whatever. It's been a while since this happened." Tayuya scoffed at the term pervert and accused him of being one. "Hey, I'm not a..." "Look, you were the one who came to this conclusion," shouted the Uzumaki in response. I'm not sure. I'm not urging you to take a hard-nosed approach, does that make sense? This has already started off unfavorably. She growled and screamed that you would be an idiot if you ordered the girl, whom you had captured and locked up, to strip naked. The shirt was the only thing that caught his attention, and Naruto responded with a simple, "I'm talking about this." The thought of Hinata lingered in his mind. Despite his efforts to ignore it, the intensity of its impact on him persisted. The seal's impact on your mind means that you must isolate it to have a clear and rational thought. You've already seen Anko, right? She has the same type of seal, so we know what she can do. That would be a complete shock to me, Tayuya quipped. Nevertheless, she was left with no choice but to comply. She was unable to resist his advances. Honestly, she didn't mind if they blocked off the seal. Orochimaru would have a headache less to worry if he couldn't locate her or assumed she was deceased. She reclined on her stomach while lying on the bed to allow Naruto to observe the seal in her neck. She pondered, "At least that brat is not so bad as I thought," she added. Naruto's perception of Orochimaru-sama was not corrupted by his unruly pinkish-red hair, despite the possibility of him being a big villain. Once again, she wore her tights, but the sheer texture of her exposed back was enough to make him blush. He was not bothered by the occasional scar, as he expected such things from a rough but highly trained kunoichi. She was so well trained there was barely even a hint of extra fat. Despite this, she appeared soft enough to not appear too masculine. Overall, Naruto thought that the girl was quite attractive, despite her attitude. The visibility of her breast sides didn't make it easy to continue seeing her as an enemy. Although she wasn't particularly skilled in that area, her slim frame still caught his eye. He was relieved as she lay face down and avoided him. "This is a completely different design," he murmured, after seeing the place where his eyes should be fixed. The design is similar to that of a triskelion, rather than the Tomo versions that Anko and Sasuke have in their collection. As for me, Tayuya was a patient person who typically did not restrain herself in any way. Nevertheless, Naruto observed that she no longer felt as disgusted and furious as before, as if the confusion had somehow soothed her most negative emotions. Orochimaru-sama does not offer a cursed seal of heaven to anyone. He doesn't use the same version on anyone, it seems. Moreover, we were all just as guardians of his next body, he wouldn't have wanted to use us. "So, this is a weaker version?" Naruto asked. Tayuya shifted her focus and turned back when the arrogant girl was upset by Naruto's suggestion that she was weaker. "I'm not weaker than that Uchiha faggot, and this seal is just the better option for someone with my skill in genjutsu. I need to get dressed quickly so that I can wear a provocative shirt." Alright, as Naruto calls it, he initially required a piece of cloth to keep his nose from bleeding. He was not anticipating her turning around and re-exposing her chest. "It's like Erosenin is on my mind, right? Give attention to detail. Ignore everything." Naruto examined the seal by using a magnifying tool. Initially, it appeared to be a basic symbol, but it was actually more delicate and peculiar. Naruto's knowledge of the materials he had read was unparalleled. Naruto was surprised by the amount of scrolls of his clan's Fuinjutsu he had read over the years, which many did not anticipate. "Of course, Orochimaru is the subject of discussion," he whispered. "No, not at all. It will take some time to draw this new seal, so please don't rush it. Unless you want me to start over, what do you think I should do?" Naruto muttered. "The sealing process will cause unbearable suffering once it commences. Make sure to stay still for the maximum duration possible. This is more effective when you're conscious, even though I could knock you out. It seems like a little pain would be unforgivable to me." Tayuya quipped, gesturing with arrogance. "Why would someone as good as you do such a thing for me? You're precious to Chie, and I'll try to bring you out of the darkness that Orochimaru cast on you." Naruto's voice conveyed a surprising level of determination when she cut off her arguments. "I want to help this cat," she said. "Chie knows that being outcast, but I got her out of the way." Naruto explained that bringing back her beloved would be a much preferable alternative. "That seal has corrupted you, but you're not as wicked as the others. Your arrogance and pride are overshadowed by the fact that you have no interest in killing others. You left Sakura alive. What's your knowledge about Dash?" "The girl with pink hair," he commented upon seeing her look confused. "You spared her the pain when you could have easily taken her life." Naruto expressed his remorse by saying that it would be pointless to lie about things in this manner. After observing her shrug, Naruto was unable to comprehend the statement and decided to tell her. "As the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Kitsune, am I right?" she quipped. "Because of that idiosyncratic behavior, I experience negative moods. Really seems like a broken record. Must be quite advantageous." He mumbled, "No, not at all," while sketching the initial lines that would be used to construct the final seal. The fact that humans are so screwed up with their small fake masking masks is actually quite disturbing. Both the snake or a random person in this area carry their own darkness. Hate, greed, and envy are common emotions that everyone experiences. It's quite bothersome to try and rationalize it. Naruto was somewhat amused by the accusation that her death was not a result of feelings, as she did not feel emotionally prepared to commit murder. "What the hell is this evil that I did?" "Oh, there's a good reason to kill you," he said softly. "Hinata was harmed by you, specifically due to your actions. Chie asked me for my help, so I spared you the trouble. Hinata taught me that if someone is wrong, they can still have an impact. But you wouldn't be able to make sense of it. Until now, of course. I was never asked for anything by Chie. Chie and I have a close bond, so it's understandable that she would want to spare you. Despite my ability to feel the dark side of others' emotions and isolate myself, I was already rejected for my own reasons. Like you said before, I'm often perceived as a demon by people. He laughed bitterly as he admitted to never having been accused of rape. The chattering cat implies that she is acquainted with me, so let me know if you're not confused. Suzum was the nickname Taiyuya gave me, as she grinned and called out. It doesn't make any sense, in fact. Let me tell you, it's going to be a big lie. Upon finishing this, I'll remove you all from my social circle. Without it, there would be no purpose. Chakra is your strongest advantage, but I doubt my ability to hold a significant chance against you. Naruto jokingly stated that one must have sucking in order to become a proficient genjutsu practitioner, even though the girl was not visible. Stop moving now. The possibility of your death or worse is high if I fail to fix this seal. The Uzumaki quipped, what's the worst case scenario? I bet you would end up in my bedroom as a lovely pet, but only if your mind is destroyed by the seal, he said with laughter. Don't be upset, it was just a joke. Don't kill me for a joke. You were the one who started this mess. Where did you hide that kunai? You're wearing pants. Yikes. No, not literally, cut. You want me to authorize a C-rank mission, led by Mitarashi Anko, where you, Nara Shikamaru, and Taiyuya of Otogekure leave the village? Just to reiterate, Irokage, Naruto said backstage. We'll also be bringing along Chie. Is this how you're supposed to win her heart? Jiraiya sighed. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but Chie did have a diary that was written by the man she had arranged to marry. The daughter of the man was taken away by one of Orochimaru's underlings in a series of events. You were referring to Taiyuya as that girl, right? Yes? It's almost too chance, Jiraiya commented. My books have more compelling characters, but you're constantly insulting my masterpieces. Naruto said, I'm not bothered by the twists in this plot, I don't care, he said with a shrug. Chie asserts that Taiyuya is Suzum, and she has substantiated it. I have faith in her. Naruto rubbed his temples with sobs, and Taiyuya? She'll probably try to escape or do something foolish. Despite this, she became more composed when I sealed off the cursed seal that Orochimaru had placed on her. She is still quite unstable due to her tendency to suddenly become aggressive without any apparent reason, but it's an improvement. Although it's annoying that she keeps calling me a perv. Shikamaru was chosen because of her unstable state. Yes, of course. However, it's not solely because of his aptitude for escorting people. Naruto made it clear that Taiyuya would likely encounter difficulties after Choji's passing, and he handled the situation with great care. I think Taiyuya's roots are as good for him as it is for her. While his anger and grief are not something I can put on a pedestal, I do try to make him understand why Taiyuya was chosen as one of Orochimaru's elite soldiers. Moreover, apart from you, Karen and Bachan, only he and Hinata know that she is at the Uzumaki compound. You were smart, I thought, Jiraiya admitted with a smirk. Nevertheless, there is a distinct aspect to consider here. Through your efforts to persuade Shikamaru to accept Taiyuya, you have the potential to influence Shikaku, the Jonin commander. Moreover, with the passing of Choji, Shikamaru's squad is 1 point behind their own team, while Taiyuya cannot be included in any team due to her past. Naruto's stare left Jiraiya feeling sweaty on his forehead, as if he had never thought about those things. The blonde chuckled at his own lips and asked if he could lend a hand to Shikamaru, saying, kinda. The rest of the stuff is likewise favorable. Isn't it true that I have also offered to adopt Taiyuya into the Uzumaki clan if she wants to remain in Konoha? The issue of clan heads is not as straightforward as it may seem. As for you, Jiraiya joked that you are not yet a clan leader. As the clan leader of the Uzumaki clan, you will be eligible to join the council in a few years. Until that seat is restored, you will remain the highest-ranking member of your clan. Naruto expressed his surprise at Taiyuya's inclusion in the Team 10, which he had no prior knowledge of. I had the thought of asking Anko to take care of her while I was away for training, but it didn't come true for me. The TNI seems like a good choice, right? It is too soon for the girl to move up that high, however. Sensitivity molecules like genin are not being allowed near sensitive information sources. TNI is the department that holds the most significance, except for my own office. Let her earn the status of a chunin for the first time. She will need time to adjust to the change from Oto to here. But what's the goal? I'll be content with it. Do whatever it takes to win her allegiance, as well as her expertise. However, not for the sake of her life or yours. The kid says it's not just for Shikamaru and Taiyuya, thank you Hokage. You're also attempting to navigate your own path. It's evident that you're attempting to persuade the Nara boy to support your cause, even if you didn't express your intention. What we stand for. Despite his challenging role as Hokage, Jiraiya always had to watch over the boy. Jiraiya had always been aware of what the boy was doing since he was discharged from the hospital, whether it be through Kage Bunshin or his loyal amphibious companions. Two unlikely allies were even found by him. Despite knowing Tsunade was worried about the boy, Jiraiya still felt two painful ribs from his previous experience of calling her Mother Hen, but he had no expectation that Hyuga Hitomi would step in and take care of him. Although Jiraiya was not particularly fond of her husband and family, she soon realized that Hitomi was quite different from the typical Hyuga. He recollected the day when Hiruzen had informed him that Naruto had been taken captive by the Hyuga. His disbelief at the act was no longer present when he began monitoring Hitomi. While not to be underestimated, this woman also seemed to have a genuine interest in Naruto. When Hayashi prioritized the needs of his clan and recognized Naruto's worth as Jinchuriki, Hitomi appeared to be driven by her firstborn daughter. Was it because of her connection with Kushina? Nonetheless, she was aware of his relationship with Naruto and offered to assist him in managing Naruk's unconventional actions within certain areas. Jiraiya believed that she had put her daughter at a significant risk by telling Hinata to be cautious about Naruto, without divulging any confidential information. There was a lot to worry about concerning Uzumaki Naruto. Akatsuki's shadowy group would eventually endeavor to acquire Naruto. Kumogakure and Iwagakure, along with other countries, were showing a little too much interest in the boy. Then, there were the internal dangers. Shimura Danzo was the most irritating person, and Jiraiya was constantly frustrated by his inability to control him. Hiruzen had warned Jiraiya several times to be on the lookout for the cripple shinobi, but much of his actions were still in hiding. While the extent of Danzo's support in the council and among the clans was still unknown, Jiraiya had to be extremely careful. Despite being warned by Hitomi about the same man, he was still troubled. What connections could there be between Danzo and Hisashi? Even if the murderer's clan of all-seeing shinobi were involved, why was it impossible to solve? Despite the disrespectful tone towards the deceased player, fixing the Team 10 gap could alleviate the headaches caused by his death. It appears that everyone is plotting to have their child selected for a team consisting of two clan heirs, with the Sarutobi clan leader as the topmost leader. It would also alleviate my concerns about Taiyuya being at risk. Asuma is one of the few people I can rely on in this situation. The girl's secrets, which may surprise her, remain a mystery. Despite the brat's lack of heart support, he is expected to do well, she said. The Godame Hokage sighed, acknowledging that there was a great deal to be gained. There are no naked women. Jiraiya muttered, and then gazed at the surface. Irika's annoyance is evident when he stands in front of his desk. The Chunin crossed a delicate line between reprimand and disrespectful expressions, saying, "You're back on Earth, Hokage-sama." Jiraiya was left wondering when the man had been trying to reach him for as long as he did. "You'll need to read all of these documents now that I have them." This request was made by the Yamanaka and Nara clans. This article, authored by Tsunade-sama, contained suggestions for improving the hospital's appearance. It appeared that she had taken control of the place and opted to stay where she was. Jiraiya screamed, "Paperwork! I wished I had become nothing more than a simple shinobi." The fun was much greater than getting out on a mission like that of the brat, especially since Irika still had his teacher mode, as Jiraiya put it. Despite repeated comments, Tsunade believed that there was someone else around who had the courage to teach Jiraiya. It would have been nicer without the extra paperwork. Irika muttered as he exited his office. "I suggest you ask your Hyuga girlfriend," Jiraiya quipped. Hyuga Ako had used the term immature to describe the old pervert on several occasions. "Are you ready to leave?" Naruto's response was, "We're almost there," but he didn't give much thought. "While we wait here, Chief will come back to retrieve our things. We had only a short while to leave Konoha. Anko and the criminal were on a mission, but why did you take them?" It's not that he didn't express his disgust for Taiyuya. Despite having promised to bring Taiyuya back to Konoha, he still had feelings for the girl who played a role in killing Choji and Shino. Naruto expressed his relief after visiting Choji and Shino's graves during a conversation with Kurenai-sensei yesterday. Although it was unintentional, he had met her and been happy about the chance meeting. It was a struggle to witness their final moments. He had initially assumed he could handle the task alone, but subsequently chose to do it in that manner for his own personal pleasure. He was burdened with a sense of guilt. He could have saved Choji from death had he been faster. Naruto was aware that Choji could have survived if he had utilized a portion of the Kyuubi's chakra, as Kurenai had previously stated. She had shared with him about the first time she lost her father, who was dear to her heart. It was the Kyuubi who had killed him. The difficulty of coping with loss and the guilt she felt for following her orders on that day was profound. The phrase, "what if," was loathed by many shinobi, who were left wondering about her ability to save him and feeling uncertain. Guilty was a common experience for many, particularly the elite in the shinobi force who had repeatedly faced the worst sides of their world. The eccentric personalities of a significant number of the upper class were the evident indication of managing their stress. Although it didn't ease Naruto's pain, it did reinforce his belief that there was a fundamental issue with their world. Kurenai had reported that the Akimichi clan was grieving for their deceased son, whereas the Aburame were not. Their belief system was founded on reason, characterized by a lack of emotional investment. They had their own graveyard, but it was not typical. A young tree was planted on the site where the deceased's remains were buried. Due to their distinct fighting style, the clan grew insects that would be housed in a tree. There was no squandering, and it made sense. If that was reasonable, then in Naruto's eyes, it was a terrible thing. They were not machines, they were people. Naruto's family found it revolting that Shino had discovered death, which was not something that should be dismissed as a mere event. Choji's monument stone featured his name as a symbol of heroism. Even though the boy died in an illegitimate mission, it was still considered an honor. What is the meaning of honor? Heroic acts. Their deaths should serve as a reminder of their legacy, it was their life. Naruto said, "I went to their graves," then slowly. Joking back to the present. The speaker relayed to me the information about how everyone is faring. Ino's father is taking care of her to prevent lasting mental harm. The healing powers of Kiba and Hinata, who have increased their training to twice their current levels. Karen's current situation has dealt her a major blow, as she has pledged to never be without purpose again. Without her, we wouldn't have found anything. No matter what we say, she felt powerless and worthless. She holds herself accountable for Choji's demise. She is currently training with Kurenai-sensei, has asked me for more scrolls on Fuinjutsu, and works shifts at the hospital, learning from Bachan and Shizun. Given that your team was out of commission, disbanded, and focused on recovery and training, you were the perfect match for this task. You could have posed Tenten with a question, but you still found ways to avoid responsibility, Naruto quipped. Although he suspected that Shikamaru's genuine concerns were not about Taiyuya, but rather the work required to make this mission successful. Lee is currently at the hospital and Niji has been restricted from straining himself, but Tenten was also available for missions. Although Anko was uncharacteristically quiet as she licked at her last dango stick, he nodded and acknowledged his belief that you were the better option. Are you not fond of Anko? Wait, what? The Nara muttered, taken aback by the sudden shift in atmosphere. You don't get Anko, Shikamaru remarked, uncertain of his response. Is it not that simple? Why am I doing this? Taiyuya has a cursed seal, and Naruto said that she also holds one, the book described. An earlier experiment revealed that a seal that was weaker and never reached its weakest state like Taiyuya had to endure. Anko remarked, I am responsible for protecting this small boy, as he poked at the girl who was gagged. The girl had another fit shortly after leaving Konoha. The cursed seal was so pervasive that she attempted to attack them but failed, repeatedly yelling obscenities until Anko became disillusioned with it. Despite the sweet silence caused by her mauling, she still had a murder-like look in her eyes. The seal's constant attempts to corrupt me involve utilizing my doubts, anger, and hatred to manipulate me, Anko explained. It bolsters those emotions and thrives in the absence of happiness. Orochimaru breeds his soldiers in this manner. When people are unintelligent enough to volunteer, he makes purchases, steals, or takes them. Their youth causes them to go through a terrible ordeal, discarding any remnants of hope they have in their hearts. The most powerful survivor of that hell, he grants the power of the cursed seal. They are his enslaved companions. Konoha is the birthplace of my spirit, which meant that I would have a strong will to resist evil. However, what about children who have gone through hell and their will is broken? They would not have had any chance to challenge the seal, and they would be defeated in battle. Shikamaru looked at the bound redhead and reacted with emotion, you make her sound like there's no hope for her. If that were the case, we wouldn't be present today. Chie is aware that Taiyuya was once her own self before being taken away by Orochimaru's men from her family. The reason we are here is for that very purpose. The Uzumaki mentioned at the location where Chie abandoned the diary given to her by Taiyuya's father is close by. I desire to assist you, and that's why I brought you here. The hatred within your heart is palpable, Shikamaru. While I am aware of the reason, I want you to be mindful that Taiyuya is also a victim. Those who were part of the Sound Four, including those who eventually came to derive their pleasure from their evil deeds, have all been victims. Shikamaru's skepticism was evidently noticeable on his face, as he stated, yes, right. You made the same statement about obeying orders, and Konoha's behavior was consistent. Are you aware of the torture that is taught to children at the T&I department? Despite its ability to break people's minds, it is still considered too risky for their fragile minds. It's worth noting that this department isn't always run as the typical villain. Do you think shinobi from enemy villages consider themselves the villains and believe that Konoha is based on lies and bitterness? The dream of its creators has been tainted and degraded by corruption. While some people hide it under the facade of proper conduct, none can be seen in my presence. Have you noticed how many people were more agitated about the deaths of Shino and Choji than about their defiance? Shikibaru, I am under the impression that I do not possess evil tendencies. Did you also wonder if I was truly good? The Kyuubi gradually began to corrupt me, leading me to become paranoid and start believing that everyone else was insane. Layers upon layers of seals, I waited like a predator to release those with too much malice in their hearts. Naruto stated that he saw himself as a judge and executioner. I believed I could see the truth and remove those who were too harmful for our world, but my true self was only revealed to me as a short-sighted fool. It is likely that I am still in the situation. Shikamaru expressed that taking someone's life to prevent murder is a positive outcome. The right to live was taken away from murderers. To prevent being a murderer, who would kill you? Naruto sighed. At the academy, Hokage shared with me his perspective on the world and how we were all trapped in a constant cycle of hatred. A pattern where one hatred resulted in another, and so on for the past few years. Shikamaru shrugged, we all know that our life is meant to be this way, and responded, that's what we want to do with our lives. It may not be perfect, but it's evident. Our status as Shinobi is undeniable. We are what we do. Enko shook her head and asked the child, do you believe in the world now? Would you rather bring your own bad acts to the table or try to change the situation? As a child with intelligence, you may be aware of my social awkwardness. This is why Sandame-sama instructed me to look after the kid and Godame, too ordered me also to monitor this small danger. Based on your reasoning, Taiyuya and I would not be entitled to life. Based on your reasoning, Naruto's right to exist was also relinquished. According to Naruto's nod, you concur with him, Shikamaru replied. When Naruto corrected him by saying, Hokage's opinion, he said it was precisely the same. I lack the ability to comprehend all that well on my own. The Kyuubi, along with Hokage, taught me about the malevolent nature of the world, Haruki, and Hinata, respectively, teachings on the existence of good and evil. Despite my lack of faith, she demonstrated that there is still hope. I'd never made it this far without all of them. In the absence of their efforts, the Kyuubi would have been victorious. It is with regret that I acknowledge my lack of knowledge regarding how to make a difference in the world. The actual reason you asked me and why Jiraiya-sama allowed you to drag me along, Shikamaru muttered, his mind being quick to comprehend the uptake as usual. Chie pondered the difficulty of Choji's situation, wondering if she would opt for revenge and hate or compromise and gain empathy. In the event that you are only utilizing her to convert lazy two-leg. Chief of Arms, please welcome me back. I'm curious, did you hear me right? Very well, two-leg. The black and white Bakeneko moved closer as her body developed, ready to face the rigors of combat. I am reserving her for my offer. If she consents, I'll take her into the Uzumaki clan, and we'd fabricate the claim that she's part of the group and enslaved Orochimaru. Chie's combative behavior was not disconcerting to Naruto, who reacted by frowning. I am confident that I will keep my word and not backtrack. The crucial point is whether she will, and I've started to question this aspect. She was initially able to understand my reasoning, but after days of concealing and holding her cursed seal, she seems to be losing patience. Chie, I am aware that you don't want to see it, but I have no intention of being dishonest about it. She needs something to counterbalance the cruelty of her seal, according to Crazy Snake's two-leg. Chie asserted that she would be envious of her parents' affection, even though Naruto suspected that the cat had doubts. Chie was troubled by Taiyuya's erratic behavior, as he had feelings for the girl she had once betrayed. While Orochimaru was being insulted by Taiyuya for his unholy conduct, he made an urgent effort to return to Otogakure the next day. However, Naruto eventually realized that the power of the sealing method he used to counteract the cursed seal was negligible if the person who carried it didn't have the strength to fight back. Considering the pain and hatred in his heart, it was not unexpected for Sasuke to succumb to the temptation. Her physical appearance was so strained that she could only emit her most unhygienic glares. The current glare was particularly offensive. Shikamaru sighed with a regretful voice, stating that, your story is the best way to get through to that girl. It was evident that he had a preference for planting kunais in her throat. Naruto observed that Shikamaru was vindictive, despite Taiyuya not being the one who killed Choji. Taiyuya was told to me by Whisker Two-Leg, Chie said, before turning towards him and glancing at the Nara. I resided on an island with my relatives. Due to my small size and lack of curiosity, I didn't meet many people's expectations. Instead of focusing on improving my fighting skills, I enjoyed reading and watching stories about the two legs, which made me feel like an oddball. Those who are connected to me should also be aware. Nevertheless, they were my relatives. A large tidal wave hit our island one day, and I was carried off. I was terrified of humans at that time, believing they were colossal beasts that would devour me for food. When I woke up, a little girl was hitting me. This dwarf had a pinkish red hair and was talking gibberishly. Anko chuckled, "She hasn't grown much yet." Chia glared at him and said, "Dango Two-Leg, you seem much better off. I heard you discussing something interesting with Red-Eye Two-Leg, should I take the risk?" Anko exclaimed. "If you ever talk about that, I'll kill you." As someone with such a large mouth, I find this statement to be somewhat lacking in courage, Chia stated before shaking her head. She said, "I was found by this little girl. Your size made you feel like a small person, as I had never encountered any human or child before. I came across Shiori, who had the same hair color as me, and it was as if I were discovered by a human and her kitten. Through Shiori and her husband Mitsuo, I learned that humans were not as evil as my elders had taught me. Shiori, Mitsuo, and Suzum were all born into our family. The months you were with me were the most enjoyable I've ever spent together." It was not the hateful glare that Naruto saw in Taiyuya's eyes, but something else. Doubts. Doubt? He nodded and Anko removed the gag with him. Taiyuya's throat remained dry as she coughed up words of praise, saying, "You're just so stinkin' bad. Can you provide an estimate of the number of orphans? Hidden villages have a tendency to collect them into orchards, choose those with minimal skills, and train them to perform their most unsanitary tasks, so that no child with parent would be taught. The orphans are not talked about by anyone, including seductresses, undercover spies, assassins and suiciders. I was sold by my erotic parents. I was on par with a shitty orphan, and I felt like it. This was your family's story. A couple with a baby, who was just 10 months old, were to be seen. The sight of the woman holding the child caused Taiyuya to stockpile her breath. Shiori's appearance was reminiscent of hers, which may not have been coincidental. Taiyuya observed that Mitsuo's eyes and slightly dark skin-colored complexion were identical. It was as if she had gazed into a distorted mirror, where she saw aspects of herself in these two older individuals. Mitsuo's birth was marked by his unique ability, which he acquired as a two-legged Genkai. He had the ability to sway his emotions into the music he produced, weaving in various illusions. Chia continued, "He would often bring a song for you when you couldn't sleep, and it helped to calm you down. The diary contains all the necessary information. The last entry is made after the day when our lives were transformed. Shiori was killed by a two-legged sword, the house was burned, and you were taken away. Mitsuo had discovered us when I emerged from my unconsciousness. We initiated our desperate search for the evil two-leg, which was made possible by my mark on you. We mark our partners, as they usually live in seclusion, and we swore by Kaneko. Tracking each other for years is possible with just a small paw mark of the chakra. The distance between us and the evil two-leg was too far away, indicating that my sense of the mark is limited. My only option to increase my chakra and find you again was to form a contract with Mitsuo Two-Leg. Sadly, the evil two-leg utilized his own abilities and the huge two-leg that perished in the woods to attack us, while the individual who killed Chubbyod also attacked. Although Mitsuo was killed by Suzum, he never gave up on you. He remained committed to you until his death, showing love. You were not slayed. Even if it caused them to lose their mind, they would still hold on to you." Pictures of Shiori and Mitsuo during their childhood years, featuring an older man who bore a striking resemblance to Mituso, pictures of their marriage, photographs of the household, and more. Taiyuya's resistance was broken up at some point during the fight. Chia's constant attacks were too much for her to handle, even with the skepticism. The realization dawned upon her that her life had been a fabrication, which was beyond the power of the cursed seal. But she didn't want to see the concrete evidence. Although words can be distorted and people have been deceived, these images were not fraudulent. The long-lost daughter was brought to the attention of happiness and love that had been with her for many years. The girl's breakup caused Nara to grimace as he watched the grip of hatred from the seal become lost. Her collapse quickly shook her, as if it had stripped her of her strength. It was a good thing that they had set up camp beforehand, and Enko gently placed her in one of the tents. The snake mistress asked, "Should I bind her?" with a frown. "Oh, I'll ensure she doesn't have access to her chakra. Kitty, you're keeping an eye on Orochimaru. It's not something Naruto thought up, but to kidnap children from their homes and make them into vicious killers. Having lived in an orphanage, I've witnessed children disappearing, but nobody paid much attention to where they ended up. The authorities in Konoha were concerned about the people who are not part of any clan, so how did Tenten's admission to the academy come about?" Shikamaru responded with a harsh tone, questioning whether her actions were considered treason. "You comprehend what I'm saying? You come across as much better than the average Nin who claims that Konoha is evil." The blonde expressed regret by asking, "Are you even here yet? Do you think I'm being disloyal for exposing the flaws in Konoha's current system? I thought you were smarter than that, Shikamaru. If Konoha was truly as good as it's labeled, would it train children to become soldiers and conduct Chunin exams instead of open warfare? How about a village that celebrates death like Yondaime Hokage but doesn't acknowledge those who fight for survival, similar to Hatake Tsukumo? What is your message to me? I want to eliminate the cycle of hatred. I am determined to put an end to the killing of innocent people. I aim to prevent the formation of new individuals like Taiyuya and Choji, or Gaara and myself. The old pervert is correct in his wish for a village that is truly good, where morality is not determined by those who pay for it. A community pursuing peace. As for my dad and the other clan leaders, why haven't you or Jiraiya shared this with them? I wonder where they are going wrong," Enko expressed. "The kid tells you a better version, but your old man hears something similar from the Hokage himself. In addition to his predecessors. Change is not desired by clans. Their dissatisfaction with equality is evident. Had they not opted for the current system, they would have modified it several years ago. Sandaime-sama made an effort, but he was too generous. The softness of the material is excessive. It's conceivable that he gave up after trying. Despite his beliefs, he permitted extremists like Danzo to wield power. Danzo, who is supported by various clans, shares his belief that a shinobi's heart should be free from all emotions and that their behavior should follow logic instead of following the heart. The shinobi are simply unintelligent devices. You have a clear understanding of what emotions can do, Naruto said, referring to Taiyuya. It has the ability to bring about destruction and provide salvation at the same time. You are aware that logic cannot befall everything. It's important to remember that life isn't a game of chance. If you don't think Choji's death is just the outcome of your actions in pursuing Sasuke, Shikamaru could feel the anger and see Nara staring at him. Our current mission is coming to an end, and I'm left wondering if Taiyuya deserves to be killed. Do you believe we have the right to do so? And assuming you wanted to meet me down to the ground, how did you go about it? Hyuga Hideo expressed his disapproval with a wide smile on his face. The ancient Hyuga had navigated through a maze of underground tunnels in this astonishingly large complex. You wanted to talk to me in my actual office, Danzo said without any emotion, his usual calm tone. The question remains, what led you to make that choice? I find it hard to trust those who are always out of sight, Hideo remarked. My son has become disenchanted with you due to this reason. The real reason for that is his vexing wife. I'm not entirely sure if her suspicions about you were mistaken. It's not important to me. The Sandaime was a dim-witted person. His views are destined to be rejected, and as a result, he died. Hyuga Hitomi is the obstacle we share. What did you do to my youngest? Hideo shifted the topic, showing that the veins around his white eyes were protruding. Are you stung by that shadow eye? It's evident that. Hitomi was the only one among them, as Hideo pointed out. I learned genjutsu because I had my suspicions that you were using something similar, but her eyesight is better than mine. I am unable to comprehend the extent of what that elderly woman can see or not see. Is it you attempting to manipulate me into moving towards that woman? Danzo whispered. No matter what his age, he will not tolerate the act of hurting his wife. He won't be caught as easily as his brother. I utilized a genjutsu maneuver to coerce him into doing certain actions. I was unable to obtain any information about the Jinchuriki that your clan was living in as I had no knowledge of its location. The boy is worth praising for his protection. My agents were unable to keep an eye on him in that area. The mess was caused by you. Nevertheless, I am thankful for your contribution in clearing your own rubbish. My son's murder made me apprehensive to some extent. Whether it was a failure or not, he was my soulmate. You must have waited too long, because you were going to get exposed, Danzo said with a grimy smile, mocking the older man. That is not the reason for your presence here. We have some common issues as well. My daughter-in-law is one of them, but her daughter will be the next person to go out. Although Hinata is only known as an heiress, the way Hitomi is teaching her doesn't sit well with me. The most frustrating thing is that the woman in their vicinity can't be observed by any of my male companions. We haven't been able to accurately identify her range yet. If the feeble girl is trained in her methods and takes on my son's role, we would both face difficulties. The arrival of that weakling would result in the destruction of my clan. Danzo sighed and stated, those are the quiet souls. The second issue we confront is comparable in nature. Hideo said, Jiraiya. His remark about his future outlook is alarming. The clan is not accepting of the idea of equality. The support of various clans has contributed to your position and influence, which I am confident in. Despite the fact that none of them are openly vocal about their opinions. Danzo's gaze became less acute as he reduced his field of vision, seemingly reassessing his adversary once again. The balance of power in Konoha would be disturbed if all individuals had the same rights as clans. The clanless have a fondness for the fool, as they consider him to be part of their own group. The history of Jiraiya has been replete with shrouds. Hideo's notes on the Toad Sage continued, an orphan, with no parents' knowledge. He is not a man we openly disagree with, she said. The power of Orochimaru, Tsunade, Jiraiya and all of them is greater than my own abilities. Nevertheless, I am on the lookout for someone who is about to become much more formidable than me. Uzumaki Naruto was the loudspeaker of the Hyuga, who muttered. Exterminator of my family members. I've been dealing with that greasy chap for an extended period. It's possible that he concealed himself for an extended period, even with our gaze. What do you say, but make sure he's willing to go with you. Don't be deceived by me. I'm curious as to why you called me right away, even though I accepted your invitation. Hideo smirked slightly. I observe that you are rushing, but there is no noticeable change. The death of a few children is not an inexplicable factor in our profession, and Uchiha's actions betrayed us. It was to be anticipated, given the background of his family. Nonetheless, those things are not the issue. The Uzumaki is hiding behind a girl and trying to make you feel like she's holding her own. I always make sure to monitor that buck, and his friend had the same unusual spot as the snake's youngster. Even though he knew about the hidden deals with Orochimaru, Danzo couldn't rule out the possibility that Hideo was unaware of them. The Hyuga elder was fully aware of the significance of knowledge in a secretive village. The Hyuga were born with the trait of being spies, even though their high status and prestige did not fully justify their reputation. Despite this, Danzo was aware that Hideo places greater importance on greed than on pride. If my dealings with Orochimaru were to be made public, I would lose a significant number of fans and potentially ruin Root's career. Due to her status as one of Orochimaru's most prestigious individuals, the girl was particularly vulnerable due to those deals. Fortunately, Orochimaru's seals prevent them from sharing secrets with anyone but himself. The automatic suicide mechanism provided by the TNI department is a valuable trick. Despite this, the Uzumaki area has proven to be a challenging terrain to penetrate. The Hirono girl's trust in the Jinchuriki could result in me having to use that asset to eliminate the threat that Otonin poses. Your plans necessitate the assistance of my clan and I, Hideo declared, acknowledging that he had turned the tables. He had the understanding, and now it was time to take advantage of the situation, as he would now be responsible for making the demands. I must request some concessions in exchange for our support, which I do not want to disclose. I will provide you with bait to catch your prey if you are willing to help us. Hyuga Hideo, I believe that you are playing dangerous games. I have witnessed your soldiers in hiding, but did I enter this location without knowing better? The Hyuga are the most powerful clan, Danzo, remember that they were my hero. Let's negotiate a deal that suits both of us. Determine the value of the Jinchuriki boy to you. Her body had a burning sensation across all her veins, and her skin was both warm and cold. She was alternating between conscious and unconscious states of speech, where she heard fragments of a dialogue. I couldn't find her anywhere else. Another more vexing query was who she was. The Sound Four's other gates, including Hokuma no Taiyuya, had all died. Is it not? The unstoppable strength that had enslaved her appeared so insignificant now. What had transpired? She listened to the voices. She was the hysterical woman with purple hair who kept poisoning her until she lost her chakra. She spoke to a blonde menace about Nara, who had disappeared into thought and became disoriented. The pain in her neck increased, making it harder for her not only to kill them but also to eliminate those individuals who prevented her from speaking out. Despite not disappearing, it didn't intend to affect her. The absence of sound allowed her to contemplate. To keep in mind the past and present. What is the definition of family? Shirori and Mitsuo, who are the parents of Suzume. Kenta, who murdered her mother, stole Suzume. Suzume, who had been enduring years of torment, transformed into Taiyuya. Taiyuya's connection to Suzume and her sense of familiarity with the character disappeared. What is the significance of a bad name? I've been called Taiyuya for as long as I can remember, so I don't think it matters much whether it be 1 or 2 stars. Irrespective of the cat's pronouncements. Nevertheless, Suzume had an appealing aroma. The notion of family, warmth, and security took her by surprise. She had never thought of the possibility in her life. Taiyuya from the North Gate believed that she was born to parents who had sold her into slavery and disliked her life due to this circumstance. Nevertheless, Suzume was the offspring of loving parents who had sacrificed their lives to ensure her survival. The mere thought of being loved left her scratching her head. Her entire life had been spent as a shinobi and reliant on technology. It is not a person, but an object. She had assumed that was the way it should be. The cat's presence led to the blonde guy saving my life. She found it difficult to open her eyes and observed Anko's wide grin. It's safe to say, kiddo, you were right about that girl, she appears quite healthy. Naruto acknowledged with sarcasm that the woman had not attempted to plant a kunai in her throat, which is eloquently reported. Taiyuya, how is your experience? You kind of fell off, Anko moaned. It's just take a little bit of time to get some strength back. Once you're prepared, we'll return to Konoha. Unless she decides to leave, Naruto said that she shouldn't go anywhere, he added. The suggestion triggered protests by the black and white cat that had been sleeping beside Taiyuya. I keep my word and do not back down on my dash. Upon hearing Taiyuya's words, Naruto smiled and said good. Assuming you're prepared to become an Uzumaki, what do you think? No, I don't believe me. He shook his head in agreement, acknowledging that she was looking at him with suspicion. I promised you that I would adopt you into my clan, but with no more responsibilities. Are you a sister like Karen-nichan? Naruto's response was one that puzzled him while he laughed. Karina's constant remembrance was that she wanted to be with her family. Due to my tendency to be alone, we mutually referred to each other as siblings. If you're willing to die, do you also want that? Taiyuya blurted out. The clingy stuff was still too much for her to cope with. That's a no-no, I'm trying to make that clear. Naruto's mood remained unaffected for a few seconds after losing his battle. The responsibility of looking after you will fall on Anko, who will be your caretaker. Before you ask the question, it should be noted that she has a seal that is cursed. An earlier release, but still in use today. Her understanding of the seal's corrupting influence is unparalleled and will assist you in building resilience. Additionally, after my absence for training, someone must be present to ensure your safety. Once Orochimaru learns that he has been betrayed, the snake will likely have an infiltration of at least 2 other creatures in the village. Why do you seem to be so accepting of me? Taiyuya wondered, if the man who previously offered to kill her was now such a happy person. I sensed malice, right? You changed, Naruto shrugged off his feelings. Let's hope Shikamaru changes as much as he does. The Nara are not regarded as a clan that can easily be trusted, Anko exclaimed, shaking her head. Are you referring to the girl as Taiyuya or Suzume, is how the redhead responded. I've been my daughter for as long as I can remember, and I feel like I belong to that group. I will no longer be Taiyuya of the North Gate, however. I presume my identity is Uzumaki Taiyuya. This was one of the first times Anko heard Chia purring. Naruto sported a smile and left them. Bewildered. Instead, he went to the fringes of the camp they had established. He spotted the Nara sitting and staring into space a little further out. What is your opinion on the future of our world? Naruto questioned and then spoke up, while waiting for Shikamaru to follow suit. You don't feel as gloomy now as it was years ago, and I'm glad you did. The idea of avenging Choji for attacking Taiyuya doesn't appeal to me as I dislike fighting with my friends. Sasuke's behavior was so distasteful that it could be considered acceptable. He was not even a friend. She will be rejected by many others. Their thoughts will be altered, one by one. I was picked as the first person by you because I am the son of the Nara clan leader, Shikamaru stated. On a second glance, that isn't how you perceive it. The entire account of your plan to modify Konoha's behavior would have been unnecessary. Shiramaru, you are my friend, and I didn't want you to become enraged and revenge-prone. Observe the harm it inflicted on Sasuke. Furthermore, you possess a high level of expertise. In my youth, I declared that I would become a Hokage to make myself noticeable to others. Upon meeting Gaara, I realized that I had multiple reasons for wanting to become a Hokage. In order to alleviate the suffering of Jinchuriki like us. My list of things that I believe should be improved in Konoha was only expanded after that. However, I am aware that I may not be the ultimate solution finder when it comes to all kinds of issues. Until now, I have been able to forcefully remove most problems. I am in need of assistance from individuals like Hinata or you to assist me during times of hardship. I am unable to complete everything on my own. Despite my efforts, the outcome always seems to be disappointing. The only way to address the inadequacies of a team is by working together, as stated by Kurenai-sensei. Shikamaru's thoughts persisted despite the circumstances. In a group of Hokage descendants, you aim to build support for your future position in the clan. Modifying the current attitudes of the clans through us. Smart. It was unexpected that you had a forward-thinking mindset like that. According to Hokage, every generation will eventually outstrip the previous one, he said. In my opinion, our generation has the ability to resolve the issue of the previous generation. Shikamaru looked at him for a while, as if he was making an educated decision. Finally, the Nara nodded off. Although I acknowledge that our world is flawed, it will take years before we attain a position of influence, and I am confident that none of us can claim such sway. These flaws are exploited by those in power, who profit from them, and as a result, they won't be willing to change their behavior. Your power may make all that irrelevant in a few years. It's possible that it could be said again. Naruto shrugged off the idea that the Kyuubi could be defeating him. The most important thing is that those in power are willing to change. Those who will eventually become the rulers of the land. I'm not trying to impose my beliefs on the village like some kind of mafia. Nevertheless, this is one of the motives for which I desired to communicate with you. The training is coming up soon, but if I'm still alive, I don't want to leave the village as it is now. After all that has transpired, it's not yet happened. You're assembling companions. Naruto declared with a smile, I have only the best. He questioned whether Gaara could replicate the same feat in Sunagakure. Their shared fantasies of becoming Kate in their villages and changing the world made them who they are today. At the moment, those dreams were only that. Naruto believed that with the aid of Hinata, Shikamaru, Kiba and Karen, things could be more straightforward than it seemed. Shikamaru grimaced and said, it is not fun to kiss anyone, before realizing. Choji will receive the benefit of doing it. I will do it to ensure that there are no more cases of good and gentle people like Choji who end up dead like he did. The number of victims in our world is too high. My dearest friend has passed away, and I'm grieving for them. Never again. It's important for messed up individuals like us to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Naruto's determination was not hindered by the fact that he saw some tears in his eyes. He had a great relationship with people and was always there for me when I needed to be around. Give some time to yourself. Tayuya's recovery is imminent, and we won't intervene until she can travel, he murmured. He considered himself lucky for breaking the cursed seal spell, but it left her weak and vulnerable. Anko was confident that Tayuya would succeed, despite the fact that the seal had caused more harm to the girl than it had done to him. The revelation of her parents' truth, along with reading Mitua's diary and seeing pictures, provided her with a source of hope and love that Anko never had. Naruto was eluded by a Senbon when he claimed that Reito was her personal source of hope. Repair well done, Naruto said to a fatigued Jiraiya. It's surprising to see the stockpiled paperwork in the office. He gazed at the surroundings and scowled. Umbu? Jiraiya muttered, offering privacy. Please give me some time, she said. It's been a tiring day, little boy. Is Naruto able to confirm that Shikamaru was successful on both sides of the argument? You may have already informed me beforehand. This would have saved a lot of time and effort. She said, lazy as a Nara. The proverb on a coincidence was not invented by them, as Jiraiya quipped. I believe that Naruto had a valid point regarding this matter. He has the ability to detect things that I lack. I'm urging you to stop hiding, girlie. To avoid being noticed, Tayuya took off her mask and lowered the hood. I'll let you know, geezer, if it's safe. Tayuya's expression was frowned upon as he replied, and what? Okay, I'm starting to take a jab at it. I know my past and how my life was destroyed. My life has been filled with lies and deception, leaving me feeling disgusted that it was all a mere facade. Although I don't give a damn about this village, it is advisable to avoid Orochimaru until I have the nerve to kill that beast. I will pay for the death of my parents and ruin my life, Kenta. Is your loyalty questionable? Whiskers and that cat are both important to me, but otherwise, I suppose it's satisfactory for now. Shikamaru, thank you for your contribution to the mission. Although you may have already figured that out, I request you to refrain from disclosing any information about this mission at this time. I have reason to believe that Orochimaru has some connections in Konoha, and this mission is likely to be classified as a S-rank secret until further notice. Moreover, the items that the Gaki warned you could cause harm if you allowed them to be spread. Hokage-sama, I obeyed your command, and Shikamaru bowed and left the office as instructed. Girls, can you enlighten me on this little bug that's present in our lives? Tayuya quipped. Is it possible for them to be aware of this as well? Jiraiya retorted, acknowledging that neither Anko nor Naruto possess any animosity towards Orochimaru. Despite her mischievousness, the cat of yours remains devoted to you and Naruto. When discussing him, I am informed that Naruto declared himself as my heir. I promised you, Naruto said, holding his thumb up. I'm a complete outsider and I don't care about anything, she said. I'm Uzumaki Tayuya, not Molly, he said with a grunt. In regards to your minor security breach, it is safe to say that little is not the appropriate word to describe him and his vicious flunkies. Shimura Danzo, Jiraiya uttered as he sighed. I was aware of it. Why did you dash? What do I need to see? Is he the only one? He has his own organization, and I'm not sure why, but they had enough power to let us observe the Uchiha princess and remove him from the village without any issues. It seems that he and Orochimaru came to an agreement on it. He's like a big, fat man in Uranus. Jiraiya, the son of Anko and Naruto, had completely transformed into a serious persona. Danzo is a person who wields considerable power, as you can see from his statement. He is a cunning adversary who has no reason to let him down. Beware of him, as he will make an effort to kill Tayuya, who is the only victim of his treason. Without her, we would be unable to function. Even with her, we don't have any grounds to take action against him. Hokage is the mastermind behind the deaths of Shino and Choji, so why don't you take a stand against him? Being dictatorial and controlling by force would make any clans lose faith in me. Have I forgotten how strong Danzo was before? Did you forget about his support system? Asked Jiraiya. Smile, brat. If you want to become a Hokage, you cannot simply remove those who are against you. The phrase, altogether with the strong, you cannot trust anything, is a well-known expression in Konoha. If I become too dangerous, people will come together to overthrow me if they are afraid of me. You're so impatient, I can't even put the finger on it. Jiraiya quipped that he may have been mistaken in allowing Anko to protect him. Rato's presence is a good thing to balance things out. They seem to have a good rapport together. It's possible that we won't make a joke about Danzo, so forgive me. Let's go once more, Jiraiya quipped, gesturing with happiness. Naruto was joking to his Hokage friends, I'm so excited to return to Rai, but I must be careful with the Senbon. Is there a new goal in mind, though? Jiraiya explained, you're off on a break tomorrow, so come back the next day at 10, as he dodged another needle. Tsunadeheim wishes to meet you, but he doesn't want any. As an added measure, I am examining my injuries to see if they have healed. A mother hen that was excessively protective shook my conscience, Naruto sighed. Jiraiya chuckled, that'll never come again, and continued, just keep saying that to her. Unless you have the means to buy your way out, it's not a good idea. Another person who knew Tayuya was forgotten by them. A person who was familiar with the girl. Adjacent to her, a pale boy of her own age watched as Naruto and the masked girl in revealing clothing exited the Godame Hokage office. The boy whispered, they are normal, they don't have any restraints, no force. Sakura was slightly irritated by the lack of emotion, but her master had advised her to strive for the same level of skill. Danzo had stated that a shinobi should not be concerned about the turmoil of their emotions. In accordance with his statement, the majority of his personal shinobi were emotionless. They became more dependent due to their lack of personal goals or desires, except for fulfilling their missions. The young Haruno was irritated by one of the flaws. She was compelled to serve Danzo as much as possible, but she did not have the authority to express her thoughts. Not in these matters, at least. Despite the disguise, it is evident that she is actually hiding something. I had doubts about her the last time I saw her, but this time it is clear. She was part of Orochimaru's team that acted as an assistant to Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto's behavior indicates that he has faith in her. This suggests that the girl has become a danger to Danzo-sama. If the Jinchuriki can undo her cursed seal, she will have a dangerously creative way of fuinjutsu. Her perception of his creepy grin was somewhat insincere, which left her feeling uneasy. Your mission to get into the Uzumaki grounds has become your priority, dancing with anger, said the pale boy in a voiceless tone that was at odds with his attempted smile. Identify a method to get rid of that girl, and speed up the process. As per Danzo-sama's instructions, Sakura kept her head down. Danzo's genjutsu convinced her to comply with his orders or any of his authorized representatives. In an effort to save Naruto-san, Danzo-sama used unused resources in his assassination attempt. It is possible that you could achieve success if he has confidence in you, but it is imprudent to contemplate it. We can feel his negative feelings, but you are not a true root operative like us. Your emotions would be a disgrace to you. Assuming your assessment of his personality is accurate, and he displays the same level of protectiveness and recklessness as suggested, Danzo-sama's plan will be enough. His capacity to be easily provoked will result in his reversal. The girl is the one you will give priority to, and she deserves your attention. What is the explanation for this statement? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Support the original author by clicking their profile link in the pinned comment of the first video of this series. They deserve the love. Want early access and exclusive content? Join my Patreon community, link below. Your support fuels these videos. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll catch you in the next video. Stay entertained, stay safe.